I'm a food delivery driver, and these are my stories. I should have realized something was wrong when they offered me $30 an hour to deliver food. Now, 6 months into this hellish job, I still tell myself that. But back then, staring at my maxed out bank account and the eviction notice on my apartment door, $30 an hour felt like a godsend. The only condition was that I couldn't quit for 3 years. 3 years of guaranteed pay would have solved all my financial problems. The interview was brief. Really, very brief. A woman named Cassandra sat across from me. The office smelled faintly of disinfectant, and there was another indescribable odor, something organic, with a hint of decay. She didn't ask about my work experience or references. She simply pushed a contract onto the table and pointed to the signature area. "The pay is very good," she said in a flat, professional tone. "This job is demanding. You'll encounter some seemingly unusual situations. Follow the rules strictly, and you'll be fine. Are you okay with that?" I signed. Looking back, I can't believe I signed without even reading the pay terms. On my first day at work, I arrived at the warehouse, in the east of the city. It was a massive concrete building with no windows, only a steel door. The fluorescent lights inside blared, making my teeth ache. A supervisor named Marcus Bain handed me an insulated delivery bag, a company phone, and a small red booklet. "Read this," he said, tapping the booklet with his nicotine-covered fingers. "Read every word. Carry it with you at all times. Follow the instructions strictly. No improvisation, no shortcuts, no exceptions." The booklet was titled First Class Carrier Delivery Procedure Manual. The cover was made of some kind of leather, unsettling warm to the touch, as if it had been taken from a living creature. "This is ridiculous," I muttered, flipping through the densely packed rules, each one more outrageous than the last. Marcus grabbed my wrist, despite the damp, stifling heat of the warehouse. His hand was icy cold. "Eric, right? I need to make this clear. This job pays so much because it's abnormal. You signed a contract. You can't quit for 3 years. So you have 2 choices. Either follow the rules and keep your job, or ignore the rules." Well, I hadn't seen anyone ignore the rules in 6 months. I don't know what happened to the last one. None of us know. Before I could respond, he released my wrist and walked away. For the next hour, I sat in my car reading the manual. My stomach tightened with each page. The company slogan was embossed in red on the inside cover. "We deliver for any living thing." I thought it was just a marketing gimmick. I was wrong. My first order arrived at 2:47 p.m. The company phone rang, and an address appeared on the screen. Street Ange Hospital, 13th floor, room 000. I pulled up the building information. Street Ange Hospital had been abandoned for 15 years after a patient murdered 3 nurses and a doctor before hanging himself in the pediatric ward. The hospital only has 12 floors. I opened the brochure and found the section labeled Hospital St. Ange, my hands trembling. The instructions were very clear. Park your car on the loading dock at the back of the building. Never use the main entrance. Enter through the service door. The door is open. If the door is locked, leave immediately and report to the dispatch center. Use the stairs to go to the 2nd floor. Do not use the elevator, even if it appears to be working. On the 2nd floor, find room 666. Knock 13 times. Wait silently for 30 seconds. Find room 333. Knock 13 times. Wait silently for 30 seconds. Return to the stairwell. You will find a new staircase leading upstairs that wasn't there before. Don't be surprised. Don't look back at the corridor you just left. Go up this staircase. It will be completely dark inside. Do not use a flashlight or your phone's light. Walk steadily upwards. You might hear breathing sounds that aren't yours. Keep going. You'll feel a noticeable drop in temperature. When you see your breath concede in front of you, you're almost there. At the end of the stairs is a door marked with the number 13. Open that door. Place the delivery bag on the floor inside the threshold. The floor might feel strange under your feet. Soft, warm, and slightly pulsating. This is normal. Don't investigate it. Put the bag down and leave immediately. Don't look into the room. If anything speaks to you, don't respond. Run down the stairs as quickly as possible. Once you reach the 2nd floor, the stairs behind you will disappear. leave the building immediately. I read the instructions 3 times, hoping to understand something. It still didn't work. The delivery bag contained only one meal, a nearly raw steak, soaking in blood. The smell made me nauseous. The St. Ange's building looked like a tombstone. The lower floors were covered in graffiti, several windows were shattered, and shards of glass glistened in the dim afternoon light. I parked my car in the loading area as instructed, and the silence became suffocating the moment I turned off the engine. No bird song, no traffic noise, nothing at all. The back door was unlocked, as expected. The rusty hinges screeched as the door opened, echoing in the empty hallway. A stench hit me. Mold, decay, and beneath it all, the smell of rotting organic matter I detected in Mrs. Cassandra's office. I switched on my phone's flashlight, illuminating the darkness, and found the stairwell. Peeling paint was everywhere on the walls. As I climbed to the second floor, I swear I heard footsteps moving upstairs, the sound perfectly synchronized with mine. The second floor hallway stretched endlessly in 2 directions. The emergency exit signs flashed a sickly yellow. I first found room 666. Its door was painted black, unmarked, except for a brass number that seemed to gleam in my flashlight's beam. I knocked 3 times, my knuckles echoing like gunshots in the silence. After the 13th knock, I heard something moving inside, a massive object dragging itself across the floor with a wet, scraping sound. 30 seconds felt like 30 hours. I stared at the timer on my phone, watching the second hand tick by, while the thing behind the door continued its slow movement, drawing even closer. When the timer showed 30 seconds, the thing suddenly stopped moving. Room 333 was at the end of the corridor. I walked towards it, only to find my footsteps no longer echoing. The sound seemed to vanish into the surrounding air, as if the hospital had swallowed all my noise. I knocked 13 times on the door of room 333. This time, the response was completely different. A child's clear, bright laughter echoed from the room. Then another child's laughter joined in. Then a third. Soon, dozens of children's laughter came from behind the door, their voices layered, distorted, all rising in pitch until they finally merged into a piercing scream that made my ears ring. I ran back to the stairwell as instructed, following behind without looking back. Even as the laughter reverberated through the corridor like a living thing, the stairwell door slammed shut behind me, and I found myself in complete darkness. My flashlight was still on. I could see the beam cutting through the air, but it illuminated nothing. The darkness swallowed the light like a black hole. Then I saw it. The new staircase leading upwards. I could see it because it was deeper than the surrounding darkness, like a negative space in the void. I put away my phone and began to climb upwards in the darkness. From what was probably the 5th floor, the sound of breathing filled the air. My breathing was slow and rhythmic, like some enormous creature drawing air into my lungs that shouldn't exist. It came from all directions, from above, below, and even from inside the walls. I continued climbing, one hand gripping the railing, the other clutching the takeout bag tightly. Around the 12th step, my breath began to condense into mist. The temperature plummeted, my fingers went numb. My breathing grew louder and more rapid, as if the source of the sound sensed my approach. Something brushed against my shoulder, cold and damp, feeling like fingers made of ice water. I suppressed a scream and continued climbing. A door suddenly appeared in front of me, marked with the number 13 in brass, emanating a faint, sickly glow. I flung it open. The floor immediately fell off. The brochure had warned me, but the reality was completely unexpected. The floor was hot, almost feverish, vibrating slightly under my feet in rhythm with my heartbeat. The touch was like stepping on a bare, untreated muscle tissue. I dropped my bag and ran, afraid to look into the room, though I glimpsed something large and pale moving in the darkness outside the threshold. As I ran down the stairs, I heard wet chewing sounds from upstairs, accompanied by groans that could be ecstasy or agony. I ran until I reached the back door and rushed into the loading area before stopping. The sun was setting, and the city was returning to its usual hustle and bustle. The phone buzzed. Delivery confirmed. $87.50 has been deposited into your account. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, trembling, before finally being able to drive away. The second order that made my impression came 3 days later. At 11:47 p.m., the phone rang. Blackstone Castle, door-to-door delivery. I opened the brochure with trembling hands and forth the relevant section. Head to the whereabouts stables. Yes, we have horses. Choose the gray mare named Patience. She knows the way. Load the goods into the saddlebag. The castle cannot be reached by car. You must ride a horse. Follow the path behind the warehouse. It will lead you through the woods. The entire journey will take approximately 40 minutes. Do not stray from the path. You may see figures in the woods. They will call to you, and sometimes you will recognize their voices. Do not respond. Do not look directly at them. Pay attention to Patient's ears. The castle gates will open. Ride through the gates into the courtyard. The well is located in the center of the courtyard. Dismount, but do not tether Patience. She will wait for you. Approach the well. You will hear various sounds coming from it. Voices, music, and laughter. These are echoes of the castle's history. They're harmless. Throw the delivery bag into the well. You will not hear the bag hitting the bottom. This is normal. There will be a response from the bottom of the well. It could be talking, singing, or screaming. Don't try to understand what it's saying. Don't look into the well. Return to Patience immediately. She will gallop back to the barn. Hold on tight, and don't look back at the castle. If you see lights on in the castle window, ride faster. The barn and stables are behind a door I hadn't noticed before, marked only by a small horseshoe. The air inside smells of hay and horse in surprisingly normal, almost comforting scents. There are 4 horses in the stable, but only one is gray. As I approach, Patient looks at me with her deep, intelligent eyes. I open her stable door, and she neighs softly, pressing her nose against my chest, as if sympathy. "You've done this before, haven't you, young lady?" I whisper. She hums, seemingly in agreement. The offering is simple: a covered pot, radiating warmth, and the aroma of herbs and meat. Whatever was inside, it was for someone who still preferred a hot stew. The trail began, as described in the brochure, as a narrow dirt road winding into the dense forest behind the warehouse. As soon as Pattinus stepped onto this path, the city lights went out, and we were surrounded by thick trees, unable to see even the stars. Patient moved with steady steps, her hooves softly pressing down on the soft earth. My gaze remained fixed on her ears, watching them turn, listening to the sounds of the surrounding forest. 10 minutes into the ride, the first sound came. "Eric." It was my mother's voice. My mother, who had died of cancer 2 years ago. "Eric, baby, where are you going? Come here. I miss you so much." My eyes welled with tears, but I kept my gaze focused on the horse's ears. The voices came from the depths of the woods to my left. "Please, Eric, don't you want to see me one last time? I'm right here. Look. Oh, look at me, just once." Patient pressed her ear to my head and quickened her pace to a jog. The voices followed us, growing more desperate and more urgent. "You left me to die. You weren't there when I needed you. You should at least look at me." These accusations pierced my heart like knives, because some of them were true. I had missed the last few days of her life. I hadn't returned until the very last week, stuck in another state, working a job I was going to lose anyways. Guilt gnawed at me like a living, breathing thing. But I didn't look at her. Other voices joined my mother's, my ex-girlfriend, my high school best friend who had moved away, and my father, whom I haven't heard from in 5 years. They were all calling to me from the darkness, some pleading, some accusing, and some just sobbing in pain. Patience started to jog, and I gripped the reins tightly, burying my face in her mane, trying to block out the voices. I glimpsed figures moving through the woods, their gait unsteady, their limbs clumsy, and their faces slightly elongated. Thank goodness the forest had finally come to an end when we reached the clearing. The castle stood before us like a decayed tooth. 3 of its 4 towers had collapsed, and ivy completely covered the walls, as if the forest were slowly swallowing it up. But as the brochure had said, the gates were open. The rusty iron doors twisted into various shapes. We entered the courtyard, our pace gradually slowing. Moonlight filled the courtyard, bright enough to cast clear shadows. The well, a circular stone structure with an iron roof, stood in the center of the courtyard. I dismounted, my legs trembling, and carried the delivery bag towards the well. Before I even reached it, sound rang out. I was already halfway there. First came laughter, the elegant, clear laughter of nobles at a banquet. Then came music, a string quartet, playing a complex baroque piece. People spoke, languages I couldn't understand, their voices mingling and overlapping, the sound of horses' hooves on pebbles, the cries of children, women singing lullabies, men shouting commands, the clanging of swords, someone playing in Latin. It was as if all the sounds that had ever occurred in this place were simultaneously emanating from the well, compressed, superimposed, merging into a chaotic symphony. It should have been unbearable, but for some reason it wasn't. It was almost beautiful. I walked to the well and held the delivery bag to the opening. The well was pitch black, as if a void was pulling at my eyes, forcing me to look deeper. I released the bag. There was no sound of the bag falling to the bottom. It was as if the echoes of history were playing back, growing louder and more frantic. Then a voice answered me. A voice from the abyss, speaking an ancient language. It wasn't speaking to me, it was speaking through me. I could feel its sounds vibrating in the soft tissues of my bones, teeth, and internal organs. Its meaning, it passed through my consciousness, reaching a primal part of my brain, a place that understands hunger, darkness, and the patience of those who live forever in the abyss. It was saying thank you. I ran back to Patience, and out of pure fear, I smoothly mounted her. She needed no urging, turned, and charged towards the gates, her hooves sparking on the cobblestone. As we galloped through the gates, I made a mistake. I glanced back. Every window in the castle was filled with light, candles, torches. The whole building radiated a warm glow, brimming with life and celebration. I could see shadows moving behind the glass. People were dancing and dining. In the highest window of the last remaining tower, a figure watched us. It was incredibly tall, and even from this distance, I could see its head was oddly shaped, too narrow, too long, and wearing something on its head, like antlers. It raised an arm, as if waving, or perhaps offering a blessing. Patience galloped faster than any horse I'd ever seen before, the forest on either side fading into blurs of darkness. We only slowed down when we saw the lights of the warehouse ahead. I just dismounted my horse when my phone buzzed. $134.50 had been deposited into your account. Before the theater delivery, I'd done 2 months of normal deliveries, or rather, the normality of the job. An order was left on a doorstep. No one answered, but the door opened automatically 30 seconds after I left. A midnight delivery to a cemetery, placed on a specific tombstone, with singing in the distance. A package was handed to a taxi driver who didn't say a word. I looked at him for 5 seconds and couldn't remember what he looked like. But all of that was manageable. Terrifying, but manageable. The theater delivery was different. 2:17 a.m. Phone buzzing. Theater District Subway Station, Platform 7. The section about this delivery in a brochure is longer and more detailed than the others, with appendices and footnotes and different handwriting, as if several deliverymen had added warnings over the years. The Theater District Subway Station had 6 platforms. Platform 7 is only open between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. You must complete the delivery within this time frame. Enter through the main entrance on 7th Street. Station staff will not assist you. This is normal. Purchase a token from the machine. Tokens are required. Debit cards are not accepted. The machine only takes cash. Insert exactly $2.75. Go down to Platform 1, walk to the end, which is the tunnel's entrance. There's a door marked Employees Only, Platform 7. This door will be open during delivery hours. The stairs behind the door are deeper than usual. Count the steps. If there are more than 127, you've gone too far. Return to the top and start again. Platform 7 is empty. It is always empty. If you see anyone else on Platform 7, leave immediately and report to the dispatch center. Do not deliver goods. Walk to the center of the platform. You'll see a bench that is different from the other station's furniture. It is older, ordinarily decorated, made of dark wood, and has brass fittings. Place your delivery item on this bench. A train will arrive in 3 minutes. This train is not on the timetable and is not a regular subway train. There will be passengers in the carriage. Do not make eye contact with anyone in the carriage. If they talk to you or gesture to you, Do not respond. The doors will not open. This is intentional. Passengers will take packages from the bench in some unknown way. You do not need to know the specific method. After the train departures, wait a full 60 seconds, then return the way you came. Do not run. Running will attract attention. Delivery man, J.M.'s tip. Trains sometimes stop at the wrong spot. If the door coincides with where you are standing, close your eyes and count to 30. Don't open your eyes, no matter what you hear or feel. Delivery man, D.R.'s tip. I heard someone calling my name in the train car. I accidentally responded. 3 days later, I heard the same sound coming from my closet. I moved. I suggest you strictly follow the rules. The package was a white cardboard box, sealed with red tape. It was heavier than it looked, and the contents made a wet, slippery sound when I picked it up. The box was cold, colder than the warehouse freezer. At this time, the subway station was deserted, save for the buzzing and flashing fluorescent lights. The ticket booth attendant was an old man reading a newspaper, and as the pamphlet said, his gaze never left the paper as I passed. The automatic ticket machine mechanically swallowed my banknotes and spat out a brass token that looked like it came from another era. The token bore an unfamiliar subway system logo. The metal was warm in my palm. Platform 1 was deserted, the tiles gleaming under the glaring lights. I walked towards the end of the tunnel, my footsteps echoing, each echo accompanied by a new sound, another set of footsteps, slightly out of sync with mine, coming from a direction I couldn't discern. A door marked Employees Only, Platform 7, stood out starkly against the concrete and steel of the station, for it was made of wood. The wood was a deep, almost black cover, carved with symbols that were almost unbearable to look at. Behind the door, a spiral staircase descended, the walls on either side pressed tightly against the floor. I counted each step aloud, my voice weak, swallowed by the enclosed space. 27, 28, 29. The air grew cold and more oppressive, carrying the smell of metal and electricity. 63, 64, 65. I heard music coming from above or below. I thought jazz, the kind played in underground bars during Prohibition. 99, 100, 101. My phone died at step 112, plugging me into darkness, with only the intermediate flashing of the emergency light. 123, 124, 125, 126, 127. The bottom door was modern, like other emergency exits in the subway system. I pushed it open. Something was off about Platform 7, but it wasn't immediately obvious. Its dimensions were wrong. Too long and too narrow, the ceiling too high, the color of the tiles on the walls were wrong too, a deep regretting that no urban planner would approve, and it was eerie, silent, as if the platform was in this mysterious space where sound couldn't travel normally. The bench was in the center of the platform, just as described. It was a rustic beauty, like furniture in a mansion, not a subway station. The brass fittings gleamed, and the wood was intricately carved with patterns. I thought they resembled vines or perhaps snakes. I placed the white box on the bench and stepped back. The wait was agonizing. My watch showed 2:34 a.m. I still had time, plenty of time before the delivery deadline, but every second felt like an hour. The silence was oppressive, making my eardrums ache. I began to perceive my breathing and heartbeat with unusual clarity. At 2:37 a.m., I felt it first, then heard it, a vibration in the air, the change in air pressure making my ears ring. Then came the sound, the distinctive rumble of an approaching train. The train emerging from the tunnel wasn't modern. It was old, incredibly old, like a relic from the early days of the subway. The carriages were made out of dark wood and brass, bathed in warm yellow light. Through the windows, I could see the passengers. My blood froze instantly. Passengers were dressed in clothing from different eras. A woman with a 1920s-style modern dress. A man wore a Victorian-era suit. A child wore tattered clothes from the Great Depression. A soldier wore a World War II uniform. They sat or stood, swaying slightly with the train's movement, each staring intently at me. Something was off about their expressions, not obviously, not in a way I could articulate, but something felt off. Their proportions, their expressions, even the rhythm of their blinks. The train slowed, slower and slower. For a moment, I even thought it would stop right in front of me, the doors right in front of me. Just as I was about to cover my eyes, the train suddenly moved forward 3 feet and stopped. The doors didn't open, but passengers by the windows pressed their hands against the glass, their handprints condensing into fog on the cold surface. Some laughed, others stared intently out the window, their gazes focused and heavy. The feeling sent chills down my spine. In the car closest to me, a woman mouthed something to me. I couldn't hear her through the glass, but I could read her lips. "Can you hear me?" I turned my face away, my gaze fixed on the floor, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. Something was knocking at the window, a rapid, urgent knock, as if trying to get my attention. I didn't turn around. More knocking came from several windows, an intermediate rhythm sounding almost like Morse code. Then came voices, somewhat muffled through the glass, but still clearly audible, all at once. Look at us. We just want to talk. Don't be so rude. Eric, is that you?" The last voice made me shudder. It sounded like my mother's voice again, but distorted. "Eric, is that you?" As if it was coming from a broken speaker. "Eric, darling, I'm right here. I've been waiting for you. Look at me. Just this once, please." I tried not to look up, my eyes burning. I silently counted down the seconds, trying to block out the sounds. The white box on the bench was gone. I didn't see it disappear. I didn't hear it. It was just gone. The sound stopped abruptly. The train jerked off, slowly at first, then gradually accelerating until it disappeared into the tunnel on the other side of the platform. The rumble faded into the distance, and I was once again alone in absolute silence. I counted to 60, each number feeling like a small victory. Then I walked, not running, through my instincts, screaming at me to sprint back to the door, up the 127 steps, across the station, and into the city night, where the air had never tasted so sweet. I had just reached the ground when my phone rang. $203.75 has been deposited into your account. I probably have 1 or 2 more stories to tell, but more orders have come in, so I'll be back. I know I haven't uploaded in over a year. Yeah, I know. I've been doing this for almost 2 years now. They even got me a cake for my first work anniversary. Okay, I think I have some excuses. Around my first year on the job, I started having hallucinations, moving, irregular shadows in my peripheral vision, faces and wallpaper patterns and figures standing in doorways, but they vanished when I looked at them directly. I recognize these signs. I've been battling them since I was 19. Bipolar 2 disorder, with mixed episodes. That's why updates are so hard, especially since the job is really demanding. Anyway, this is the 4th story. I opened the manual and found the entry. My heart sank when I saw how brief it was. Those complicated delivery assignment had pages of rules and step-by-step instructions, and if followed strictly, they'd be safe. Short instructions were different. Short instructions meant almost no one could help. Deliver to 1247 Carpenter Street between 7 and 8 p.m. Ring the doorbell. Wait. An elderly man will open the door. He will invite you in. You must accept. He will pour you tea. Accept the tea, but don't drink it. He will tell you a story. Listen to it completely without interrupting. After the story, give him the item. He will give you something in return. Accept it gladly. Leave through the front door. Don't look back at the house. Delivery man MK's notes. The story I heard was different each time. The one I heard was about a woman who drowned her child. I still dream about it. Delivery man PL's message. He gave me a photo. The person in the photo is me, taken from my own apartment. I don't know when the photo was taken, if I've changed all the locks. I've started sleeping with the lights on. Delivery man TH's message. Keep whatever he gives you. I tried throwing mine away, but it came back. It always comes back. The package was a glass container containing a small plant I didn't recognize. When I wasn't looking at it directly, the plant moved. I could see it moving out of the corner of my eye, its leaves spreading out like fingers. It was actually a familiar neighborhood. a beautiful area with well-maintained houses and neatly trimmed lawns. The house itself was a simple two-story Victorian building, painted light blue with white accents. It didn't look like a dangerous place at all. It looked like the kind of place where Grandma would bake cookies and knit blankets. At 7:26 p.m., I rang the doorbell. The elderly man who answered was exactly as I expected. White hair, kind eyes, wearing a cardigan and slippers. He had a genuine smile on his face. "Oh, the delivery man has arrived. Please come in, come in. I've been waiting for you." His voice was gentle and kind, like that of a kind grandfather. I entered the house and he gently closed the door. The house was spotless. Every surface was covered with a tablecloth. Family photos hung on the walls, the children, the grandchildren, and a woman who must have been his wife. The air was filled with the scent of lemon polish and aromatherapy. An old-fashioned grandfather clock in the corner ticked softly. Sit, he said, gesturing to the patterned sofa. "I'll go make some tea." He went into the kitchen, and I sat down, placing the glass container on my lap. The plant pressed its leaves against the glass, and I swore that something in the house was watching me, something that wasn't quite an eye. The old man returned with a teapot, porcelain cups, and a matching teapot, and a bowl of sugar cubes. He carefully poured 2 cups of tea, as if he had done countless times before. "Earl Grey," he said, handing me a teacup. "A touch of lavender, my own blend." The aroma was enticing. I took the cup, but didn't bring it to my lips. He sat down in the armchair opposite me, took a sip, and smiled. "I think I should tell you a story now. That's how it is, isn't it?" I nodded, hesitant to speak. "It's a story," he began, his voice deepening and becoming magnetic, "about a delivery man who broke the rules." A chill ran down my spine. "Actually, it was a lot like you. Young, despite for money, and willing to ignore the oddities of the job. At first, he did very well, meticulously following every instruction, but fear is like acid, slowly eroding you until you just want to escape." The old man's gaze never left me. His eyes were no longer friendly. On his 31st day of work, he received a delivery order to an apartment building. It was simple, just place the food on the door marked with the red X. But he kept having nightmares, seeing strange things. When he arrived at the building, he found the door marked with the red X's. The tickling of the old-fashioned clock was deafening. The brochure said to catch the dispatch center if anything seemed amiss, but he was too tired, really too tired, and he didn't want to wait, so he just went with his gut and chose the middle door. He put the food down, turned around, and left. The old man took another sip of tea. "The problem is that order wasn't for a real person. It was for something else, and something with specific delivery requirements. He delivered it to the wrong door. Mistakes always have consequences." 3 days later, they found his car outside the apartment building. The engine was still running, the door was open, the delivery bag was on the front seat, empty, but the delivery man was still missing. Although people in the building sometimes say they heard knocking coming from the walls, the rapid knocking sounded like someone trapped, trying to escape. The old man put down the teacup and smiled again, this time with an ancient and eerie quality. "The moral of the story is, rules are not arbitrarily made, nor are they suggestions, much less principles that can interrupt arbitrarily," he explained, like my grandfather explaining a fairy tale. He held out his hand. "Please, give me the thing." My hands trembled as I handed him the glass container. He took it and placed it on the table beside him. The plant inside immediately began to climb up the glass wall, its form now clearly visible. "Now, as is customary, I'll give you a gift." He took a small object wrapped in white cloth from the pocket of his cardigan. It was heavy and icy cold when it was handed to me. I slowly unwrapped it. Inside was an old-fashioned silver pocket watch, intricately engraved, but upon opening it, inside of the watch face, a photograph came into view. It was me, sleeping in my apartment. It was taken from the perspective of someone standing at the foot of my bed, looking down at me. The photograph had been taken the previous night. "A reminder," the old man said kindly, "that you are never truly alone." I stood, my legs barely supporting my weight. Thank you for the tea, I said in a weak whisper. You're welcome, he said. Have a safe trip, Eric. I walked towards the front door, the pocket watch burning hot in my pocket. I didn't look back at the house, though I could feel him watching me the whole way until I reached my car. My phone buzzed. $156.25 had been deposited into your account. That night, I didn't sleep a wink. I sat in the living room, lights on, staring at the bedroom doorway, wondering if something was standing there, lurking out of sight, spying on me like a photographer, spying on me as I slept. The pocket watch was on my coffee table. I tried putting it in the drawer, but an hour later, it was back on the table. I tried leaving it in the car. When I came back from the bathroom, it was on the kitchen counter. It always comes back. Then I wanted to tell you a nice story, to give myself a break while typing. After all, this job isn't all about cannibalistic monsters. At 3:33 p.m., the phone rang. I almost didn't want to look, but the contact bound me like chains. The address, garden. No street, no house number, just those 2 words. When I opened the booklet and found that entry, it was different from the others. The handwriting was older and more refined, as if someone had carefully written every letter. When you receive the package sent to the garden, you'll receive a precious gift. Cherish this good fortune. Drive north on Highway 888 until you see a dirt road marked with white stones. There are no road signs. You'll recognize it when you see it. Drive 7.7 miles along this road. Even if the distance seems off, your odometer reading will still be accurate. Park at the end of the road. Walk through the gate. The gate will be open. The path in the garden is obvious. Follow the path to the center of the garden, where you'll see someone tending to the plants. This person will talk to you. Listen carefully. They may know something about you that others don't. Important. They may offer you something. Food, drink, rest, comfort, or even answers. You can accept food or drinks. You can rest if invited. You can listen for answers. However, you must absolutely not accept any physical goods or gifts, nor touch anything offered to you, except for food or drinks offered directly to you. The rule is absolutely valid. Whatever is offered, no matter how much you want it, you must refuse any physical goods, except food and drink. You will know after the meeting. Return the way you came. Messenger AM's message. Whatever you do, follow Rule 7. My previous messenger did not follow it. They found his car at the end of the dirt road, the driver's side door open, and the engine still running. They never found him, but sometimes delivery requests still come from the garden, and the customer's name is his. This delivery was special. A simple brown paper bag, like the kind for lunch. Inside was freshly baked bread, still warm, and a bottle of unlabeled wine. The aroma of the bread was intoxicating. The fragrance of yeast was flawless. Highway 888 stretched north from the city, through the suburbs and into rolling farmland. It took me 40 minutes to see it. A dirt road paved with smooth, rounded white pebbles like eggs. There were no signs or markers indicating where it led, but I was absolutely certain this was it. The road wound its way through fields of wildflowers that shouldn't be blooming in late autumn. Their color were too vibrant, too perfect. Blues, purples, and reds, as if radiating an inner glow. My odometer ticked up. 1.2 miles, 3.5 miles, 5.8 miles, and 7.7 miles. At the end of the road was a gate made of living wood, trees that had grown into an archway, their branches intertwined and lush. Through the archway, I saw a garden. It was the most beautiful place I had ever seen. White gravel paths meandered through flower beds, past fruit-laden trees, and through vine-covered gazebos. The air was filled with the scent of jasmine and honeysuckle, and a unique fragrance that reminded me of my childhood summers, Christmas mornings, and all of my fondest memories. The path led me deeper into the garden, past roses that seemed to whisper, telling me something in a language I could almost understand, and past apple trees where a gentle breeze rustled the branches, creating a crisp, bell-like sound. Everything here was brimming with life. Unlike ordinary plants, they were sentient. They watched and they welcomed me warmly. In the center of the garden was an open space, with a simple wooden table and 2 chairs. Standing there, tending to the cluster of white lilies, was a man. He was ordinary in every way, of medium height with brown hair, wearing work clothes, and his fingernails stained with dirt and sawdust. But when he turned to look at me, his eyes were ancient and kind, filled with a sorrow that seemed to encompass the entirety of human history. "Eric," he said, his voice like a gentle stream, like a breeze rustling through leaves, like all the comforting sounds in the world. "It's a pleasure to have you here, but please sit down. You've brought me bread and wine, which is very kind of you. Would you like to share with me?" I sat there speechless. He gently took the bag from my hands, broke open the bread, and poured the wine into 2 wooden glasses that had appeared on the table. "Eat," he said. "Drink. You're safe here." The bread tasted like every delicious meal I've ever had. The wine was just right, warming my body and soul. "You have so many questions," he said gently. "Everyone who comes here has questions. I may not be able to answer them all, but I will do my best." Who are you?" I asked softly. He smiled. "People have called me by many names. Gardener, shepherd, teacher, friend. You can call me anything that makes you feel comfortable." I am dead? No. This place is between 2 worlds. It's the end of all roads and the beginning of all paths. Every messenger eventually comes here, if they live long enough. It's a blessing." He took a sip of his drink and looked at me with those ancient eyes. "By the way, your mother was good. She wanted you to know. She understood why you couldn't be with her until the end. The living have obligations to the living, and she never blamed you, not even for a moment." My throat tightened and tears welled into my eyes. And Cookie? And Cookie?" he continued, and I gasped. "Cookie was my dog. Cookie, my dog, that golden retriever I got on my 5th birthday, slept at the foot of my bed every night until I was 13. When cancer took its life, it was my best friend from childhood, accompanying me through the difficult times of my parents' divorce and through every tough moment of my growing up." "It's here too," the man said softly. "Would you like to see it?" As if summoned, I heard the rustling of paws on the gravel and the eager panting of a happy animal. Then Cookie slipped into the clearing, looking exactly as I remembered, young, healthy, and full of energy. He ran straight to me, tail wagging widely, his whole body swaying. I could see every detail of him. The white markings on his chest, the darker fur around his eyes, and those warm brown eyes I had gazed into countless times. "You can pet him if you want," the man said. "He misses you." I reached out, my hands trembling slightly, longing to feel that soft fur again, to hear again the satisfied sigh he made when I scratched his ear. Then I stopped. The little booklet, Rule 7, you may not touch anything handed to you, unless it is food or drink handed to you directly. My hands hovered in the air, just inches from the Cookie's head. He looked up at me with those trusting eyes, his tail still wagging, not understanding why I wouldn't touch him. I can't," I choked out. "The rules, I can't." The man looked at me, his eyes unreadable. "You understand the rules exist with the point of being here." I shook my head, tears streaming down my cheeks. Cookie whispered softly, seeming confused by my rejection. "Because this place is real, Eric. The garden is real, Cookie's real, and your mother is real. Somewhere deep within the garden. But you don't belong here yet. You are still alive, still bound to the world of flesh and time. If you touch anything here, you'll establish a connection, a debt, and debts must be repaid." He stood up, Cookie sitting at his feet. Still looking at me hopefully, he walked to where I was sitting and placed his hand on my shoulder. His touch was warm and real. "Your choice was wise. Even heartbroken, you followed the rules. That takes strength most people don't possess." He smiled. "You'll get there. You'll get through these 3 years, Eric. Not everyone can do it, but you certainly can." Cookie stood up, walking back to me and pressing her body against my leg. I struggled to restrain myself from touching it. I have to go," I choked out. "I know. But before you go..." He pulled a small leather collar with a brass tag from his pocket. Cookie's collar. "I can't give this to you, but I can give you a tip." He whistled. Cookie barked, and then turned and ran back into the woods along the path. I stumbled through the garden, tears drying on my cheeks, the taste of bread and wine still lingering on my tongue. The door closed softly behind me. No phone notification, no payment received. I didn't know what my tip was. I returned home exhausted and slept soundly for the first time in days. Until 3 days later, I sat in my apartment, staring blankly at my ever-present pocket watch, when I heard scratching at the door. I cautiously opened the door, my heart pounding with anxiety, fearing some delivery man might have brought something terrifying. After all, the last time had given me quite a fright. But standing in the doorway was a dog. A young, healthy golden retriever, about 4 months old. It had a white stripe down its back. The fur around its chest and ears were darker. It raised its head, looking at me with warm brown eyes, wagging its tail. It looked exactly like Cookie. A collar hung around its neck with a note attached. A grateful customer's tip. Ugh, this dog, I'll still call him Cookie, made me feel better for about 2 weeks. Then the dreams started getting worse. Not the delivery nightmares. I'd learned to isolate those nightmares, to archive them deep into my brain where I wouldn't touch them during the day. No, these dreams were different. They were fragmented and kaleidoscopic, with me standing in several places simultaneously, time shifting back and forth, hearing every thought of everyone I've ever met, like overlapping radio stations playing in my head. I'd been managing my condition with medication and psychotherapy. But lately, the line between maniac, lunatic, and depressive fog was becoming increasingly blurred. So I made a decision. Roy Dorman, my father, I hadn't spoken to him in 11 years. The last time I called him was because my mother died. I was going to ask him what he was doing, or at least what he had done wrong. I went to him. His address was in a once prosperous part of the city. The apartment buildings were dilapidated. The windows of the corner shop were fitted with iron bars, and people in such places kept to themselves, each with their own secrets they didn't want others to discover. Let me preface this by saying my relationship with him wasn't good. He wasn't very sober. Even before his divorce, he drank, and then, to me, 11 years old, he was just a presence, no longer my father. His apartment was on the 3rd floor, the stairwell reeking of cigarette smoke and mildew. I stood outside his door for a full 5 minutes before finally knocking. The person who opened the door looked decades older than he actually was. Roy Dorman was 53, but looked 70. His hair was mostly gray, his face was wrinkled, and his hands trembled slightly, but I couldn't tell if it was from age or from the side effects of medication or withdrawal.
"Eric,"
he said with hoarse.
"My God, Eric."
"Hi, Dad." We looked at each other, across the threshold, 11 years of silence filling the space between us.
Do you want to come in? Sorry, the place is a mess. I didn't expect it.
"I just wanted to talk," I said. Can we talk?" He nodded and stepped aside. The apartment was small and cluttered, but not dirty. Newspapers were piled in the corner. A horse race was playing on the television, the volume muted. The walls were covered in sticky notes, and I realized then that they were reminders of things he needed to remember. Take his medication, pay rent, eat lunch. I recognized the system. I had something similar in my own apartment, except my reminders were to check the manual, follow the rules, and live well.
"You look good,"
he says, though we both knew it was a lie. I was thin, had dark circles under my eyes, and hadn't had a haircut in months.
"Anyway, better than me."
"I've been working," I said. "Actually, I'm doing pretty well." A strange look crossed his face.
What kind of work?
Delivering takeout, the food delivery, the pay, not very unusual, but there are some conditions. He was silent for a long time, then went to his kitchenette and poured 2 cups of coffee from a coffee pot that looked like it had been sitting there for hours. The coffee was bitter and burnt, but I drank it anyways.
I used to deliver food.
He finally spoke.
After your mother and I divorced, after I messed up all my decent jobs because of those bastards, because of gambling, because of all that.
He slumped heavily into his armchair, held together with duct tape.
What was the company called back then? But the job was the same. Unfamiliar place, unfamiliar customers. Those rules only make sense when they're broken.
My coffee cup froze in midair. You worked for them?
3 years. Like what you're about to do. Earned enough to pay off debts, settle down, and start over.
He laughed, but the laughter was bitter.
Of course, after 5 years I gambled away most of the money, but it was all my fault. I had nothing to do with the job, the contract.
He continued, taking a sip of coffee.
You can't talk about it. You can't talk to people who haven't worked there. Remember, those words vanish the moment they leave your mouth, but your eyes...
I looked around the room, checking for anything that shouldn't be there. He took another sip of coffee.
You work for them now, so we can talk.
I put my cup down, my hands trembling slightly.
Who's your manager?
A guy named Marcus. A weirdo. Knows things he shouldn't know. Laughs like a cat that's eaten a canary. Roy's expression became vacant.
Near the end of my 3 years, I asked him how long he'd been in the business.
You know what he said? I shook my head.
He said he'd been managing couriers since the day of the carriages. He said he'd witnessed the rise and fall of empires. He said for people like him, times were different. Those who made certain choices accepted certain promotions.
The apartment suddenly felt small and cold. Marcus is still there, I whispered. He's still my manager. Roy nodded slowly.
As far as I know, he's been there for at least 50 years, maybe longer.
He leaned forward.
Eric, listen to me. It's intoxicating, but it also makes us vulnerable.
Vulnerable to what?
Like them, saying after 3 years, accepting promotions, benefits, endless work.
He grabbed my wrist, unusually firm.
Promise me one thing. Promise me that after 3 years, you'll leave. Take your money, run, and never look back.
Dad.
Promise me, Eric. The 11 years I've spent with you been because I couldn't control myself. Because I let my inner demons prevail. Don't let those inner demons prevail either. 3 years. Not a day more.
I gently pulled his hands away. I promise. We talked for another hour. He told me stories for his deliveries, of a mansion where each room corresponded to a different season, of a lighthouse that guided ships that sank a century ago, and of a library where books rewrote themselves as you read it. These stories might have sounded absurd to others, but I understood them completely. As I left, he hugged me, and I could feel how vulnerable he had become. That was about 1.5 years ago, when I decided to start taking medication. Cookies were waiting for me in the car. As I drove away, I saw my father standing in the apartment window through the rearview mirror, watching me leave. The pocket watch in my pocket buzzed. This couldn't be. It was just a pocket watch. But now everything was more than just a pocket watch. I opened it and found the photograph had changed. The photograph showed my father and me standing in his apartment. But now there was a third figure standing behind us. He was tall, his face blurred. I found Marcus in the warehouse office. He was flipping through some documents that looked like they were written in an ancient language that predates writing. As I walked in, he looked up, a wide, overly bright smile, revealing too many teeth. This time, he wasn't pretending to be an ordinary man.
Eric, how can I help?
I closed the door behind me and sat down without waiting for an invitation. My father used to work for you.
Roy Dorman, yes, I remember him. He was a good messenger. Mostly followed the rules. He had some inner demons, but who doesn't?
Marcus put down his pen. I noticed the pen looked like it was made of bone.
You've seen him?
How come you... I stopped. I wanted to say it. How come you've lived so long? A stupid question.
He said you've been in the business a long time.
Really?
Marcus leaned back in his chair.
And what do you think, Eric?
I think the manual says I shouldn't say the word resign to you, but it doesn't say I can't talk about work. Talk about how long you've been here. Talk about what kind of person you are.
Marcus's smile widened.
A keen eye. You, the Dorman family, have always been clever. You know, your great uncle also worked for us. That was in 1923. He held on for 2 years and 3 months, then tried to escape. Of course, we eventually found him. The contract was valid.
I felt a chill.
What happened to him? He became part of our collection. We will always have a use for those who break contracts.
Marcus stood up, walked to the window, and looked at the warehouse floor.
But, you won't run away, right, Eric? You'll follow the rules, serve your full 3 years, and then make your choice.
What choice?
The same choice I made 743 years ago. Or you won't have a choice at all.
He turned to face me, and in that instant, I saw his true face. Something ancient, patient, utterly inhuman, cloaked in the skin of a middle-aged man.
Leave with your sealed memories and silent tongue. Return to the normal world. Or stay. Accept the promotion. Become part of this machine. You have an order,
he said to me. I glanced at it. There really was one. To the zoo. I'm back with an update. Nothing major has happened recently, except that I've become a father. No, not in the way you're thinking. I'm not married. This job pretty much makes marriage impossible for me. I'll explain what happened later. Let's get back to where I left off with the delivery. The delivery was scheduled for 4:17 p.m. Location, Moonlight Zoo. Please ask for the manager. The instructions in the pamphlet were surprisingly brief. Arrive after sunset before midnight. The zoo will appear closed. Please enter through the service gate on the west side. The gate will be unlocked. Proceed directly to the reptile house. Do not stop to observe any enclosures, even if you hear animal sounds. The manager will meet you at the entrance to the reptile house. Hand the items directly to him. The manager may try to engage you in conversation. You may respond politely, but do not accept any offers to tour the zoo. Leave immediately after completing the delivery. Do not look back at the reptile house. Carry your SK's note. There are definitely real animals. When I arrived at the zoo at 7:30 p.m., the parking lot was empty. The main gate was locked, but the service gate opened with a gentle push, its rusty hinges silent. The 3 raw steaks I was delivering, each in a thermal bag, seemed to be subtly moving, as if still breathing. I tried not to think about it. The small paths in the zoo were lit by old-fashioned gas lamps, casting a bluish-white light. In the enclosure on the other side, I saw figures moving, large ones, small ones, and some that moved in ways unlike any animal I had ever seen. Something that might have been a bear stood on its hind legs, waving many arms at me. Something in a aviary sang in perfect human language.
Come closer. Come closer. We have much to discuss.
I kept my eyes straight ahead and quickened my pace. The reptile house was a Victorian-era greenhouse, all glass and iron framework. A woman in a zookeeper's uniform stood at the entrance, their uniform looking like something from the 1920s khaki shirt, breeches, and tall boots. She was tall and slender, her black hair meticulously pulled back into a bun, and her yellow eyes and vertical pupils. "You must be the delivery person," she said. Her voice was hoarse, like a deflating tire. "Excellent. We've been waiting for dinner." I handed her the bag. 3 steaks, as ordered." "Good." She glanced at the bag, then extended a long, forked tongue and licked the air. "Still warm."
Still moving. Perfect. She looked at me with those reptilian eyes. Do you want to see what we feed them? Quite a variety. No, I have other deliveries to make. What a shame. She stepped aside, and through the glass wall of the reptile house, I saw things in the cages that were definitely not reptiles. Or if they were reptiles, they were from somewhere else. A place with different anatomical and physical rules. I should go. Of course. She took a steak from the bag and held it up. The steak twitched in her hand, and I realized with a jolt of fear that it was growing. New tissue. Regenerating. Thankfully, she just grinned, revealing a mouthful of sharp, pointed teeth. Have a safe trip, delivery man. I hurried away. The sounds of feeding followed me. Wet, tearing sounds and satisfied groans, perhaps from the zookeeper, or the animals she was feeding, or the meat itself. As I reached my car, my phone buzzed. $198.25 deposited into your account. After the zoo incident, I chose a normal order. Family diner order. Pizza, breadsticks, and salad. To 4782 Oakwood Avenue. It was a nice neighborhood. Well-maintained houses, minivans in the driveways. The order form was blank. No rules, just the address. This should have alerted me. At 6:45 p.m., I parked in front of the house. Every window was brightly lit. Through the sheer curtains, I saw a family sitting around a dinner table. Parents and 2 children. A perfect picture of suburban life. I held the pizza bag in my hand and rang the doorbell. The father opened the door, beaming. Oh, wonderful. The children are starving. How much is it? It's already paid for, sir. I just need your signature. He signed on my phone, John Smith, which should have been another warning sign, and then they took the pizza bag. Would you like to come in? We're about to say grace. I really should be going. I insist. It's the least we can do. After all, you brought us dinner. Something in his tone made it sound less like an invitation and more like a plea. I went inside. The house had a strange smell, not unpleasant, but artificial, like someone had sprayed air freshener on something rotting. The family sitting around the table looked picture perfect, too perfect. Their smiles were just right, their posture impeccable, even their breathing seemed choreographed. Levi, the mother called. Come and get your pizza. A door opened upstairs, and I heard the patter of small feet on the stairs. Then a child appeared, a boy, about 8 years old, with brown curly hair and bright green eyes. Except he was walking on all fours. He scampered down the stairs like a dog, then stood upright at the bottom, but his posture was all wrong. His spine curved and stiff, not at all like a human spine. He grinned at me, revealing slightly pointed teeth. Pizza, he said. His voice sounded normal, like a child's, with the enthusiasm children have for pizza. Did you order extra cheese? Levi, your manners, the father said. Speak in your normal voice. I am using my normal voice, Levi said, then dropped to all fours again and trotted to the table. He jumped onto a chair and sat down like a dog, his hind legs tucked beneath him. The mother laughed. Her laugh like wind chimes. He's still learning. Kids, you know. I didn't know what to say. The little booklet was blank. There were no rules here. Levi opened the pizza box with his teeth, his hands, which looked remarkably human, apparently just for show, and he pulled out a slice. He devoured it messily, but happily, like a child should eat pizza. Then he looked at me, tilting his head like a curious puppy. Are you the delivery guy? The one who goes to those strange places? Yes. Cool. He jumped down from the chair, landing on all fours and crawling towards me. My family are all humans, like you. I miss them sometimes. The parents exchanged a glance. The other 2 children, I now realized, hadn't moved or said a word, still wearing their perfect smiles. Levi, don't bother this kind delivery man, the father said. I'm not bothering him. Levi squatted in front of me. Levi, don't bother this kind delivery man, the father said. Levi squatted in front of me, looking up with his unnatural bright green eyes. I'm not bothering you, am I? No, I don't feel bothered. Good. He stood up, walking on 2 legs, which seemed to be a struggle, as if walking on two legs wasn't natural for him.
I want to ask you something. Can you adopt me?
The room fell silent.
Levi?
The mother began.
I don't belong here.
Levi's voice suddenly became old and sad.
They're not my parents. They're nice, but they're not right. They don't have skin under their faces. They don't eat. They just push the food around on their plates. I'm different from them. I'm something else. Something in between.
He took my hand with his small, very human-like hand.
You provide a service for beings like me. Beings that aren't quite human and not quite something else. You're also in between. I can smell it on you. Gardens, hospitals, castles. You've walked in both worlds. So maybe I can...
Do you want to come with me? I finished, trembling. He nodded frantically.
Please, I'll be good. I'll follow the rules. I can help with deliveries. I'm very good at sniffing out things people don't want found. Please.
The mother, father, and son stood up in unison. Their voices when they spoke were jarringly harmonious.
The child has made his request. This is his right and your obligation. Do you accept?
I looked down at Levi, this strange boy eating pizza, walking on all fours, desperately trying to escape this place. The manual was blank, because there were no rules for this situation. I was on my own.
I need to make a call,
I said. I went outside and dialed the emergency contact number Marcus had given me, the only one for situations not covered in the manual. A woman's voice answered, cold and professional.
Support. What's the problem?
I'm on a delivery, 4782 Oakwood Avenue. The customer is a child. He wants me to adopt him. There was a moment of silence on the other end. Then,
Please hold.
Background music came on. I heard a scream in the background. Or maybe it was just static. Marcus picked up the phone.
Eric, what exactly did the kid say?
He says he wants me to adopt him. He said these aren't his real parents. He's somewhere in between.
Oh, what about the child's parents? Did they say anything to you?
They asked me if I would adopt him. They said it's his right and my obligation. Under the silence, I could hear Marcus's slow, steady breathing.
This is unusual. What does your gut tell you?
I looked back at the house. Through the window, I saw Levi sitting on the floor, looking at me with his bright eyes, his tail. When did he grow a tail? Wagging hopefully. My guts tell me he's telling the truth, and that he needs help.
Then trust your gut. In this business, instinct is sometimes more important than the rules.
Marcus paused.
If you accept, he'll be under your care. The company will provide accommodations. We will have facilities specifically for handling special circumstances. But you'll need to take him out on weekends, help him socialize, and teach him how to blend in as a human when necessary. You can think of it as being a foster parent. Except this child is a shapeshifter who might accidentally eat you if he gets too excited. But I advise you to accept.
That's insane.
That's the job.
Marcus's smile came through the phone.
So what are you gonna do?
He didn't really give me a choice. I accept. Good.
Bring him to the warehouse after the delivery. We'll get a room ready for him.
He hung up. I went back inside. Levi was already standing at the door, bouncing with excitement.
Really? You said yes?
I said yes. He threw his arms around me. They were definitely arms now, hugging my waist so tightly I could barely breathe.
Thank you. I'll be good, I promise. You won't regret it.
The child's parents were back at their seats at the dinner table. I watched as their expressions shift. Their features rearranged themselves into different shapes, like someone shuffling a deck of cards.
The child is yours now,
they said in unison. The contract is fulfilled. The debt is settled. What contract? But they had already turned away, continuing their charade of a family dinner, the other two children still maintaining their perfect smiles. Levi grabbed my hand. It was definitely a hand now, warm and human, and pulled me towards the door.
Let's go. Can we get ice cream? Do you have any other pets? Are there other people like me where we're going?
Slow down, I said, but a smile voluntarily spread across my face, one question at a time. As we walked towards my car, he chattered increasingly, sometimes walking on two legs, sometimes on four.
his posture shifting with his level of excitement. The other people on the street didn't seem to notice anything unusual. Maybe they only saw an ordinary boy. Maybe only people like me, those who have crossed too many boundaries, could perceive this strangeness. After we got into the car, Biscuit, who had been sleeping in the back seat, sat up. He and Levi stared at each other for a long time. Then Levi's tail reappeared, wagging wildly, and Biscuit's tail started wagging too.
A dog? You have a dog? I love dogs. Well, sometimes I feel like a dog myself, but I love other dogs too. His name is Biscuit. Biscuit? Levi repeated respectfully. That's a nice name. Can I pet him? Yes. On the way to the warehouse, Levi petted Biscuit and talked to him about the terrible fake family, pizza, and his new life. That's when I glanced at the pocket watch on my passenger seat. The picture had changed again. In the picture, Levi and I were sitting in a room I didn't recognize at all. We all looked happy. But in the doorway behind us, hidden in that shadow, was that tall figure again. He was watching us. Always watching. My phone buzzed. $87.50 deposited into your account. Note, a weekly $200 guardian allowance will be used to care for the dependent. Welcome to foster care. E. Don't mess it up. The last sentence was definitely Marcus's style of humor. The warehouse had some areas I had never been allowed into before. Marcus led us through a series of doors, each marked with symbols that were unsettling to look at, until we came to a corridor that seemed longer than the building's exterior dimensions. Room 13, Marcus said, opening a door. Fitting, isn't it?
The room next door was much larger than it should have been, practically a complete apartment with a bedroom, bathroom, kitchenette, and living room. The walls were padded, looking like wallpaper. The view outside the window was definitely not the industrial area where the warehouse was located. Instead, there were mountains, forests, and a night sky with 3 moons.
The padding is because he might have episodes, Marcus explained. Shapeshifters his age sometimes lose control when they get emotional. This scenery is meant to make him feel less trapped. He can't actually enter the human world. It's just a projection of his, but it does help.
Levi had already started exploring, running around the room, occasionally dropping to all fours in his excitement, his form shifting between that of a boy and something more canine.
What is he exactly?
I asked.
A changeling half-shapeshifter, by the old definition. A human child taken by a non-human creature, raised between the 2 worlds until he is neither human nor that thing. But the family you met, they're collectors. They take or buy special children like them and treat them as curiosities, pet status symbols.
Marcus' face darkened.
Calm down. You were right to take him away. Otherwise, he would stay there forever, slowly forgetting what it feels like to be human.
How old is he?
It's hard to say. Time flows differently for his family. He could be 8 or he could be 80. His blood will age, but very slowly, incredibly slowly.
Marcus handed me a key.
This place is yours now too. You can visit him anytime, but you need to take him out on weekends. Let him socialize and teach him how to maintain his human form for extended periods. And whatever you do, don't let him near a casino.
Why?
Shapeshifters are banned from all casinos in the city, and he is under 18. It's a long story. It involves 3 poker games and an ace and an angry mob boss who still doesn't know he lost to a 10-year-old kid who could see through the cards.
Marcus chuckled.
That was actually your father. He agreed to stay. And I wanted to assign him a very important task as a test, but he said he had children at home. So I gave him a regular job. Maybe he was bored, or maybe he was greedy, but he worked with a shapeshifter named Thomas for a while. And they did quite well, until Thomas got too greedy and revealed his true form when he shouldn't have. I haven't seen him since.
My heart sank.
My father worked with a shapeshifter? That's right. This is the debt he owed, and it's the debt you inherited, because he's no longer in the system. Thomas belonged to a family, and shapeshifters valued family ties, and he disappeared. His family members came looking for him. Your father owed them a life for a life. He tried other solutions, but since he couldn't repay, Marcus looked at me meaningfully, and there was definitely a large part he wasn't telling me. I could imagine they wouldn't accept the eldest son as collateral. My initial thought was to fire him. Well, he said he had a son, and his son couldn't be without a father, so... And then he wanted to ask me for one last gamble. I haven't encountered such a fun situation in hundreds of years. Most people facing death wouldn't put 20 years on their life on the table for another round. I should have stopped him there, but the situation made it hard for me to stop, so I asked him what exactly he was playing. Ars Secreta Triplicis. I don't want to explain the specific rules to you. It's a combination of dice and cards. I played it with some leaders at the company retreat. The stakes weren't cash, definitely not. In 700 years, I've never seen a tie. At the time, we gambled 20 years of life, 5 million, and a shapeshifter's tail, which is very useful for navigation. The result was that we played for about a night, and it was a tie 3 times. I've never seen so many ties in 700 years, so My father chose the 5 million, not the 20 years of life? I concluded, stating the obvious. Yeah, I choose the shapeshifter's tail. Very useful. Then I told him to take the 5 million and get lost, never to come back, because I knew the debt wasn't settled yet. It's just that the shapeshifter couldn't take his life. He didn't elaborate further. Okay, so now you've adopted half a shapeshifter, so I guess you don't have to worry about them abandoning unwanted children on your doorstep someday. Are you saying this is destiny? I mean, the universe has its sense of irony. He turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. Levi will consider you his own. That's how shapeshifters are. They will completely and absolutely bond with a person. You will become his support, his leader, his family. Don't underestimate this trust. If you betray his trust... What? Shapeshifters remember everything, and they live for a very, very long time to plan their revenge. He gave that cherished cat grin. Marcus left, and I stood at the door, watching Levi explore his new home. He found a pile of plush toys in the bedroom and was arranging them in a circle, talking to each toy in a different voice. Hey, Levi. He looked up, his eyes sparkling. We'll be okay. You and me, I promise. But I wasn't really sure we would be okay. Because as I said those words, he smiled in a real sharp teeth. This might be really short this time, because if you've ever taken care of a 7-year-old shape-shifting child, you know they're about twice as difficult to handle as a normal child, especially when you're surrounded by anywhere from 1 to 30 ice cream cones while trying to eat ice cream. But I'll try to make it longer next time.
I went to see Levi again this Saturday. No matter how many deliveries I made this week, no matter how many terrifying things I've witnessed or impossible challenges I've faced, Saturday afternoon from 2 to 6 belong to him. It's our unwritten rule. The company provides room and board, and I provide the social interaction, and the closest thing to parental care you can get when your ward is a shapeshifter who sometimes forget what species he's supposed to be. Today's designation is Riverside Park. Levi had been talking about going there all week to see real squirrels, not the mutated squirrels that live on the fringes of society, or the kind of telepathic squirrels I once delivered handmade nuts to at the Pemberton building.
Normal squirrels,
He said, his eyes sparkling with excitement.
the kind that just run around eating acorns and don't try to sell you prophecies.
That was only once, I retorted, and I didn't buy the prophecy.
You gave him a $20 bill.
He was persistent. Now we're sitting on a park bench, Biscuit lying at our feet, looking like a perfectly normal uncle and nephew enjoying a spring afternoon. They can't see the faint glow around Levi, or how his shadow occasionally moves independently, or how he tracks the squirrel with his predatory precision.
I'm doing really well, right?
Levi said, his eyes fixed on a particularly plump squirrel.
I haven't even thought about chasing them. You're doing great. I haven't even thought about what they taste like.
Levi.
What? I didn't think so. I'm just acknowledging that I didn't think so. That's progress.
He finally looked at me, grinning.
Can we get ice cream? You promised.
I did promise him ice cream. It's a routine we've established over the past 6 months. Going to the park, watching squirrels, eating ice cream, then going home for pizza and watching a movie of Levi's choosing.
Look, there's an ice cream truck over there.
I said, pointing to a white van decorated with colorful patterns and playing cheerful music.
Wanna go? Can I go by myself? Like a big kid.
Levi jumped up, bouncing excitedly.
I promise I won't transform. I won't even talk to any strange people. I'll just buy the ice cream, pay, say thank you, and come right back.
I hesitated. The park was safe, at least as safe as anywhere in the city, despite the hidden layers of the city that most people couldn't see. And Levi needed independence. He needed to be trusted.
Okay, but you have to stay where I can see you. If anything feels wrong, run first, ask questions later. I know.
He was already walking towards the ice cream truck, his gait now almost entirely human, only a slight bounce betraying his non-human nature. I watched him go, Biscuit's head resting on my knee. The little booklet was still in my jacket pocket, never far from me. I'd carried it every day for 2.5 years, until the leather cover was worn into the shape of my chest. Some pages I'd memorized. Some pages revealed new contents every time I looked at them. Entries seemingly appeared as needed, rules manifesting just when I was about to need them. The afternoon sun was warm and pleasant. A family was playing on the grass. A couple was throwing a frisbee. An old man was feeding pigeons. Everything was normal, peaceful. Days like this sometimes made me forget that I've been working in this abnormal place for 2.5 years. Then, the booklet started to burn. Not metaphorically, but like literally burning. I snatched it out of my pocket and threw it onto the bench, smoke rising from the pages. Biscuit jumped up, growling warily. The booklet was open to a page that hadn't existed 30 seconds ago. The paper was crisp, the ink still wet, and there was only one word, written in a hurried, scrawled hand. Run. I snapped my head. Levi was by the ice cream truck, pointing at the different flavors, a smile on his face. Everything looked perfectly normal, except now another ice cream truck appeared. It drove in from the other side of the park, a road that definitely hadn't been there before. A white van, brightly decorated, playing the same cheerful music from its speakers. In fact, the music from both trucks were perfectly synchronized. Just as I watched, a third ice cream truck materialized out of thin air at the north entrance of the park. Oh no. I grabbed the smoking pamphlet. I watched as new words appeared on it. 3 ice cream trucks mean hunting mode. They will surround you. Don't let them trap you. Do not accept ice cream under any circumstances. I ran. Biscuit ran ahead of me, already sprinting towards Levi, barking anxiously. I dashed across the park, leaping over a picnic blanket, nearly colliding with the couple playing frisbee. Everyone staring at me.
Levi!
I shouted.
Levi, run!
He turned around, an ice cream cone in his hand, chocolate chip flavor. A confused expression on his face. Then he saw my expression, saw Biscuit's frantic barking, and his survival instincts kicked in. The ice cream dropped from his hand, and he sprinted towards me. The trucks moved. Not driving, like sliding. They defied the laws of physics, the rules of the road, and the basic principles of how vehicles should move. They slid across the grass, hopped over curbs, moving with the predatory coordinates. Their music grew louder, more jarring, weaving together into a melody that made my teeth ache.
What's going on?
Levi shouted as we met in the middle of the park.
No time, run!
We ran. The trucks pursued us. The people in the park were now also noticing the trucks. Not because anything was wrong, but because the ice cream trucks were offering special deals and free samples. I saw families standing up, children pulling at their parents' hands, all drawn like moths to a flame by the cheerful vehicles.
Don't listen to them!
I shouted, but my voice was drowned out by the music. A truck blocked our path from the east. Another approached from the south. A third was driving us towards the center of the park, towards a gazebo I'd never noticed before. A gazebo that certainly hadn't been there when we arrived.
Eric! I can't hold on! I'm gonna transform! Then transform! Whatever it takes to keep you alive.
His human body suddenly swelled. His legs lengthened, his knees bending backwards, becoming digitigrade. Suitable for running, Claws grew on his hands, his face protruded forward, becoming something between a man and a wolf with sharp, numerous teeth. And from his back, something I'd never seen before, 8 thick, muscular appendages sprouted, black and glistening. Tentacles, octopus tentacles, each as thick as my arm, covered in suction cups that opened and closed like hungry mouths.
I didn't know I could do this.
Levi shouted, his voice distorted by the changes in his throat.
I didn't know I had this power inside.
The first ice cream truck lunged at us, not driving now, but pouncing, its wheels off the ground, attacking like a wild beast. Levi's tentacles shot out, wrapping around the truck's front bumper, metal twisted and deformed. The truck's cheerful surface cracked open, and I saw what was inside. Teeth. So many teeth, spiraling like a lamprey's mouth. Levi threw the truck away. It flew 30 feet, crashed into a tree, and exploded into pink and white smoke that smelled like cotton candy and formaldehyde.
Awesome!
Levi screamed, adrenaline and fear making him manic.
I'm so powerful. 2 more.
I shouted.
Levi, stay focused.
The second truck was smarter. It split open into the middle, unfolding like a flower, revealing an interior filled with eyes and the same spiraling teeth. A long, grasping tongue, dripping with some kind of liquid, hissed as it extended towards us across the grass. Wrapping around the tongue, and a tug of war ensued. The truck shrieked, a sound like a mixture of grinding gears and human vocal cords.
Eric, the pamphlet. What do we do?
I fumbled for the pamphlet, flipping through the pages that were being written in real time. I found the relevant entry. Ice cream trucks, hostile. They hunt in packs. They feed on wonder and innocence, especially the moment a child realizes that magic is real and dangerous. If 3 trucks surround a target simultaneously, the target is devoured and becomes part of the convoy. Known weakness, salt circles, iron fillings, or simultaneously destroying all 3 trucks.
We need to destroy all 3 trucks at once.
I shouted.
How?
Good question. The 3rd truck was now circling us, looking for an opportunity. 2 of Levi's tentacles were wrapped around the 2nd truck, and 4 more were writhing defensively in the air. His werewolf hybrid body balanced on his reversed legs. He looked like something out of a nightmare. Think, Eric. Think like a delivery man. Think like someone who survived 2.5 years of impossible delivery missions. What do I have? What resources do I have? My phone. My company phone. I pulled out my phone and dialed the company number.
Eric,
The operator's voice was calm, even slightly amused.
let me guess. Ice cream emergency?
3 trucks. They're hunting us. Levi's mutated. He's growing tentacles. It's horrible and...
Tentacles are a sign of evolution. That's good for him. The tentacles pink or black?
Black? Why does that matter?
Black means he's tapping into his deeper biological abilities. If they were pink, it would mean he was hallucinating. This is good.
I heard the rustling of paper.
Those trucks, are they in formation yet?
Almost. About 30 seconds.
Do you have anything made of iron on you? If not, there's an iron plate embedded in the cover of the pamphlet. When the trucks are in formation, throw it at the middle truck. The iron will disrupt their formation. Then Levi can take them out one by one.
The pamphlet. I need the pamphlet.
Eric, trust me. Throw the pamphlet, it always comes back.
The 3rd truck was moving into position, forming a triangle with Levi and me at the center. The gazebo I'd noticed earlier was now behind us, and I realized it wasn't a gazebo, it was a throat. The whole thing was a giant mouth, the teeth disguised as decorative trim, waiting to swallow us when the trucks pushed us back.
Levi, hold on for 5 more seconds.
His tentacles were now wrapped around 2 of the trucks, gripping them with sheer force. His wolf-like face was contorted with effort, saliva dripping from his fangs. The trucks were in formation, a perfect triangle, a clanging sound synchronized into a single note. Not a sound, but a pressure. Reality wrapping around us, the air thick with the smell of carnival popcorn and blood. I threw the pamphlet. It spun through the air, pages fluttering, and struck the center of the gazebo's like mouth. A blue flash, a smell of ozone, and they shattered into pieces, evaporating before they hit the ground. The formation was broken. The trucks screamed in unison.
Levi, now!
He didn't need to be told twice. 6 tentacles grabbed the first truck, lifting it off the ground and slamming it into the second. The impact was tremendous. Both vehicles twisted and deformed. The ice cream truck shells peeling away to reveal writhing flesh and metal wreckage beneath. The third truck tried to escape, but Levi's remaining 2 tentacles shot out, impossibly long, and wrapped around its ankles. He yanked it back, pulling it into the pile of wreckage from the other 2 trucks. Then he squeezed. All 8 tentacles contracted simultaneously. The metal shrieked, flesh and blood burst. The 3 trucks were compressed into a twisted ball of matter, getting smaller and smaller until, bang, they vanished, completely gone, leaving only scorched marks on the grass and the lingering smell of burnt sugar. Levi collapsed into the ground, his body rippling, his tentacles retracting into his back, his legs transforming back into human form, and his face returning to that of an 11-year-old boy. He lay on the grass, panting and covered in sweat. I ran to his side. "Hey, are you okay? Are you hurt?"
That was
he gasped.
the coolest thing I've ever done.
I couldn't help but laugh. Hysterical, relieved laughter that made my ribs ache. Biscuit licked both our faces. His tail wagged furiously, celebrating our survival. The pamphlet appeared in my hand. It simply materialized out of thin air, warm and intact, as if it had never left. The people in the park started moving again, as if someone had pressed the play button on a paused video. But none of them seemed to remember the trucks or the fight. They simply went back to doing their picnics and frisbee games. Reality automatically correcting itself to maintain normalcy.
Can we still go get ice cream?
Levi asked weakly.
Of course,
I said.
Of course we can get ice cream.
We walked to a grape-flavored ice cream shop, Levi holding my hand with one and stroking Biscuit with the other. He was completely back in human form, but I noticed that his shadow had several extra tentacles. While his body didn't, the tentacles were still there, just invisible, lurking beneath the surface.
The shop owner served us himself, an elderly Italian man who glanced at us and said,
"Ah, another ice cream truck. They show up every few years, always causing trouble."
He scooped us 2 generous portions.
"It's free. You did a great job chasing them away. The children will thank you, even if they don't know it themselves."
"How do you know?" I asked. He tapped his temple with his finger.
"I can see things. I've been able to see things for many years. That's why my ice cream is safe. I know what the other ice cream trucks are. I make sure my ice cream is just ice cream."
He smiled. We sat outside, eating ice cream in the afternoon sun. Levi ordered chocolate chip again. I got vanilla, because I'm boring like that. Biscuit also got a small cup of dog-friendly vanilla ice cream, because Giuseppe had specially prepared some good dogs who saved the world.
"Eric,
Levi said, his mouth full of ice cream.
thank you for not being scared about those tentacles. Some people would definitely be scared." "Levi, I once delivered food to a 13th floor that didn't even exist. I rode a horse to a castle with a well in it, and the well contained something ancient. I watched you eat pizza for the first time, and you even forgot to use your hands. I took a bite of my ice cream. So, in my opinion, tentacles are cool."
That would be very bad. We finished our ice cream, walked home in the sunset, and then ordered pizza. That night, Levi fell asleep on the couch halfway through a movie, and when Marcus came to pick him up, I carried him back to the car. He was getting heavier and heavier. One of my colleagues explained that shapeshifters gain weight rapidly as they mature. In another year or 2, I wouldn't be able to carry him anymore. Bipolar disorder is a liar. My therapist, or maybe just myself, always says that. It deceives you when you're manic, telling you that you don't need sleep, you don't need medication, you don't need help, because you've finally seen everything clearly, finally unlocked your true potential. It also deceives you when you're depressed, telling you that everything is meaningless, nothing will ever get better, and the weight on your chest will never disappear. Tonight, it was deceiving me in the first way, the clarity brought on by mania. But it wasn't true clarity, but rather an electric, tingling sensation coursing through my veins, making me unable to sit still, making my thoughts race faster than I could process them, making me feel like the walls of the apartment were closing in on me. I'd already taken my medication, but it hadn't kicked in yet. Maybe another hour or two. So I paced back and forth. I brewed coffee, but I didn't drink any of it. The company phone rang. I should ignore it. I should let it go to voicemail, or in this dimension of normal time and space, any company that delivers physical goods would have a voicemail-like function. But the manic part of my brain saw an opportunity, movement, achievement, activity, a goal. Delivering could burn off this energy. Delivering could focus my attention on something else, instead of those chaotic thoughts. I grabbed the phone. Delivery address 447 Ashwood Street, apartment 12. Simple, straightforward. The address was in an ordinary neighborhood, the kind of place I'd deliver to 100 of times. The entry in the booklet was longer than usual, but I was so giddy with excitement that I barely read it carefully. 447 Ashwood Street is a special building. Reality is fragile there. Apartment 12 has 3 doors. Sometimes a 4th door appears out of nowhere, each marked with a cross. Only one is real. The other leads elsewhere. Choose correctly. I should have read it more carefully. I should have looked at the extra warnings, the supplementary notes, and the previous delivery driver's comments. But I was in a manic state, acting impulsively, my brain a jumble of caffeine and neurochemicals, the words burning before my eyes. I drove to the address. The building was old, the Victorian-era structure converted into apartments, paint peeling, the porch crumbling, the kind of place where the rent is cheap because the landlord can't be bothered to maintain it properly. Normal, ordinary, safe. The delivery was chicken curry and garlic naan. It smelled delicious, and my stomach reminded me that I hadn't eaten dinner yet. When I have these episodes, I often forget to eat until I'm shaking from hunger. I climbed to the 2nd floor. The corridor was narrow, the wallpaper peeling in strips, and only a flickering light bulb provided barely adequate illumination. Apartment doors lined both sides of the corridor. 8, 9, 10, 11. Then there were 3 doors, all marked number 12. They were identical, the same peeling brown paint, the same brass door numbers, the same cheap locks. Each door had a cross painted on it, possibly with white paint or something else. However, these crosses were slightly different, varying in style and proportion. One looked like a Catholic cross, symmetrical and regular. One looked like an Orthodox cross, with a slanted bar at the bottom, and another was older and cruder, like the kind of cross carved into a tree to ward off evil spirits. The pamphlet said that only one door was real, the others led elsewhere. I stared at the 3 doors. In my manic state, I was convinced I could deduce the answer through logical reasoning. The Catholic cross was too obvious, so it was probably wrong. The Orthodox cross was the most complex, so it was probably the right one? Or was this reverse psychology, and the simplest, crudest cross was the correct one because... which one is the real one? My thoughts raced, a chaotic mess, each conclusion contradicting the last. I couldn't focus. The medication hadn't kicked in yet, and my brain felt like it was short-circuiting. I needed help. I should call Marcus. No, wait. This was just a simple delivery. Calling for backup, that would make me look weak. I've been doing this for 2.5 years. I can handle 3 doors. But which door to choose? I stood there, paralyzed by indecision, pretending to be deep in thought, the takeout bag in my hand growing heavier and heavier. Then, I made a mistake. I knocked on the middle door, the one with the Orthodox cross, because it felt right in that moment. Because my frantic brain was convinced it had solved the puzzle with pure, intrusive genius. The door opened. Not inward, like a normal door, but outward and fast, slamming into me and knocking me back a few steps. I stumbled, leaning against the opposite wall, and looked up. The thing standing in the doorway wasn't human. It had a human shape, a woman in a tattered Victorian dress, hair hanging over her face, but the proportions were wrong. Too tall, arms too long, too many joints in her fingers.
"You're not my dinner,"
she said, her voice like wind whistling through a broken window pane.
You're the delivery boy. You chose wrong.
I took a few steps back. I'm sorry. Wrong apartment. I'll just...
Oh, it's too late for that now. No.
She stepped into the hallway, and where her feet touched the floor, the wood instantly rotted.
You knocked on the door. You opened the door. You attracted our attention. There will be consequences.
The other two doors opened. From the left door emerged a man who looked like a priest, but his cross was upside down, and his eyes were empty sockets oozing black oil. From the right door emerged a child, about 6 years old, but children don't smile like that. And children don't have sharp teeth like that. And children don't have teeth that sharp.
3 doors,
The woman said.
the 3 of us. We waited so long, and finally, someone knocked on the door. Oh, we were so hungry.
This was bad. This was really bad. The earlier manic confidence vanished without a trace, replaced by the cold, clear-headedness of genuine fear. I pulled out my phone and dialed Marcus's private number. Since the operator was probably off duty, he answered only after one ring.
Eric, it's 2 a.m. You better have a good explanation. I chose wrong,
I said, backing away from the corridor as the 3 things advanced towards me.
The door. I chose the wrong door. I need help.
A moment of silence. Then,
You didn't finish reading the text, did you? No. I was too impulsive. I thought I could. Where are you? Where exactly are you? Second floor. The corridor. There are 3 things coming towards me. They look very hungry.
stall them.
Don't let them touch you. Don't accept anything they offer. I'll be there in 5 minutes. If you die before then, I can't help you.
The woman tilted her head.
Is that your manager? How responsible. But he won't make it in time. Oh, when we want to be fast. Oh, we're so very fast.
I needed to buy time. I needed to keep them interested, but not let them become aggressive. My hands went into my pocket, finding the pamphlet, my fingers anxiously flipping through the pages, my eyes fixed on the approaching creatures. I found the text. I read the rest of it. If you choose wrong, the face will appear. They are ancient, existing before the boundaries were solidified. They were ancient, existing before the boundaries were solidified. They are always hungry. They will make deals with you, trading your voice for safe passage, your memories for protection, your name for your life. Do not accept anything. This company was founded by the god of famine himself. To maintain the boundaries, invoke the founder's protection, and they must stop. I straightened up, trying to sound more confident than I felt.
I invoke the protection of the god of famine. This delivery is under protection of the Ouroboros. You must let me pass.
The 3 creatures stopped. The woman hissed, revealing layers of teeth.
Ouroboros?
She spat.
Oh, he's Ouroboros. Oh, he's taking the best things for itself. Always taking the best things for itself.
But she still took a step back.
He has the right.
The priest-like creature said reluctantly.
The contract has been signed. The boundaries have been drawn. We cannot touch these protected by the serpent god.
The child pouted.
But we're so hungry. We haven't had a proper meal in decades. Can we just have a little bit? Just his shadow? He won't even notice.
No, the woman said, though it sounded regretful.
These rules are clear. The god of famine keeps his promises. And we must too, even if we're starving.
Footsteps sounded on the stairs. Marcus appeared.
Goblins,
Marcus said calmly, his tone as if discussing the weather.
It's been a long time since I've seen your kind. I didn't expect you to be making your home in a boundary building. Marcus,
the woman's voice changed, becoming almost respectful.
After all these years, you're still doing messenger work? Someone has to. Eric, which door is the real one? I don't know. That's the problem.
Marcus sighed.
The crude one. The crude cross. Always the crude cross. The older and simpler the symbol, the more powerful it is. The fancy ones are just distractions.
He walked past the 3 goblins who watched him, but didn't move, and Marcus knocked on the 4th door, the one with the simple cross. An ordinary human voice answered.
Hello? Hello? Who is it? Delivery.
Marcus called out.
Chicken curry.
The door opened, swinging inward like a normal door, revealing a perfectly ordinary room.
Oh, thank goodness. I'm starving. Sorry, I thought I heard someone talking. What are my neighbors up to now? Nothing to worry about, ma'am.
Marcus took the takeout bag from my trembling hands and handed it over to her. She paid, gave a generous tip, and closed the door. The elves watched us with a mixture of frustration and a touch of reverence. Marcus turned to me.
Eric, let's go.
Wait, the woman said. I have a question for this messenger. Do you know who you work for? Do you understand the true meaning of Ouroboros?
I looked at Marcus, then frantically flipped through the pamphlet.
The booklet says the company was founded by famine, and it's an Ouroboros, a snake that devours its own tail.
Marcus didn't speak until we were in the car.
Yes, Marcus said. That's right. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Famine is real, Eric. It's one of the fundamental forces that make up the universe, given form. It's the hunger that divides all existence. Every 60 years, it must devour itself, must consume its own essence to restart the cycle. That's the meaning of our existence, to ensure the cosmic cycle continues. You work for a god?
I whispered.
Not a god. Something older than gods. Something more fundamental. To them, humans are like goldfish, and the Fae are the cats that steal the goldfish.
Marcus started the car.
That's terrifying, was all that I could say. That's why we have rules. That's why we follow procedures that live in the cracks. Someone has to do the job, Eric. Someone has to walk the line, keeping the two sides as separate as possible. But it's not entirely possible. Like, in London, the real London is beneath London. And every year, a few humans accidentally take the King's Cross train to the real London instead of Soho.
We drive back to the warehouse in silence, sat in the passenger seat, the frantic energy finally fading, leaving only exhaustion and shame.
I'm sorry, I finally said. I should have finished reading that record. I should have called earlier. I was just so hyped up, and I thought you could handle it alone. I know.
Marcus glanced at me.
Eric, I'm going to tell you something I wouldn't tell most couriers. This job, find people like you because you already have one foot in the borderlands of the two worlds. You can perceive things that others can't. That makes you valuable, but it also makes you vulnerable. So am I a broken person? You're just different. There's a difference.
He drove the car into the warehouse parking lot.
You're one of the best couriers I've ever managed. You just need to know when to ask for help. Because I still need you. I chose the wrong door,
I said softly, and Marcus didn't reply.
Can I ask a question about the famine? Ask away. If something like God is so powerful, so fundamental, can it be killed? No.
Marcus said simply.
It can't. God doesn't live in the way you understand life. God simply exists. It has always existed and will always exist. All we can do is maintain our relationship with Him. Have you seen it? The famine.
Marcus gave that most standard of smiles.
Oh, yes. Many times. I'll eventually encounter it again. Every manager does. At least once. It's part of the final evaluation. Final evaluation of what? Whether you get promoted to management or switch to something else.
He got out of the car, telling me to return the car to him tomorrow.
But that's for later. Go home, get a good night's sleep. Take a day off tomorrow. No deliveries. Doctor's order. You're not a doctor. I'm 700 years old. Close enough.
He paused.
Eric, have a good holiday.
I didn't know that 6 months later, I would meet the famine myself. This may be the last story I can tell you guys, but it's a long one, so I hope it satisfies. The phone rang at midnight. I expected it. I cannot sleep anyways, exactly 3 years ago today. I signed a contract in that cold, in personal office. This job became the routine around the 18th month. I was now familiar with its rhythm and pattern. I understood that the universe held far more rooms than I knew, and some of them needed nurturing. I was awakened by the sound and instinctively reached for my phone on the bedside table. The screen's dim light illuminated my small room. The walls were still covered with my sticky notes, but the content had changed over time. No longer check the manual, but pick up Levi at 3 p.m. The phone screen displayed only 2 words: final delivery. No address, no time, no customer name. I glanced at the manual. There wasn't even a rule. I slowly sat up, my body accustomed to the rhythm of nighttime deliveries, while my brain was still processing this strange notification. Biscuit perked up from the foot of the bed, its ears twitching. In the 3 years since the garden incident, its aging pattern was completely different from that of ordinary dogs. In other words, it hadn't aged at all. Its muzzle was still golden, its eyes still bright, and its body still strong and healthy. Some gifts from another world possess a magic of preservation. I picked up my pocket watch from the bedside table. Tonight, it presented a new image, a vast sea of sand, the sky an odd color, neither blue nor gray, but somewhere in between, like a faded old photograph. In the distance, bathed in the heat, a large, curved object, like ribs, could be vaguely seen emerging from the dunes. I gazed at this image for a long time, my thumbs gently stroking the edge of the watch case. I heard footsteps in the hallway outside the apartment, light and hurried, like the scratching of Levi's paws on the hardwood floor when he was excited or anxious. After these years, sometime in midnight, he would come along to see me in the midnights. Strictly speaking, this counts as running away from home, so my colleagues always wanted to keep a closer eye on him. But as the old saying goes, you can't keep a shapeshifter locked up.
Dad?
His voice came from outside the door, young, yet more composed than when I first brought him home. Come in, Levi. The door opened slowly, and he entered in human form, or at least mostly. Over the years, he had become increasingly adept at maintaining his human form, and more discerning about which parts should be exposed and which should be concealed. But tonight, his tail was exposed, bushy and fox-like. Twitching nervously, his eyes gleamed with the light that only appeared when his other side approached, a faint green hue in the dim light. He was 12 years old, if we really count, and had learned to reliably maintain his human form. We took him to parks, museums, and ordinary places on the weekends, which taught him how to blend in crowds, how to act like a human child, and how to modulate his voice so he didn't carry around that slight growl. But there was always something different about him. Drawing wary glances from other parents and keeping other children at a distance, he had learned to coexist with it, accepting his state somewhere between human and otherworldly.
Dad?
He asked, standing in the doorway, one hand on the frame.
Has it been 3 years?
I nodded slowly. Seems so. He entered the room and sat on the edge of my bed. Biscuit immediately snuggled up next to him, offering the solid comfort honed over centuries by dogs. Levi's hands unconsciously stroked Biscuit's fur, his fingers entwining in the golden hide, seeking solace in the familiar touch.
Are you staying or leaving after that?
This was a question I had avoided for months. Every delivery man had to make a choice at the end of their 3-year term. Leave with the money and memories, or stay and become something else, perhaps an eternal presence. I haven't decided yet, I say honestly. Well, let's see what the last order is. We were silent for a moment. The 3 of us, man, dog, and shapeshifter, were crammed into a small bedroom, the city clamor outside at 3 a.m. In the distance came sirens, the rumble of trucks in the dead of night, and the faint sound of 8 million people sleeping, walking or living in the darkness. 3 minutes later, a knock came precisely on time, as if the visitor had been waiting in the hallway, counting down the seconds. Before the door opened, I knew who it was. Marcus stood in the hallway, but he looked different. He was no longer dressed as the warehouse manager. Instead, he wore travel attire that seemed to belong to some distant era, worn, soft leather trousers, an undyed, rough linen shirt, a knee-length wool coat, patched and worn, and boots that looked like they'd been through countless roads. His eyes, usually hidden behind his ever-present Cheshire cat smile, were now serious and focused, revealing a wariness never before seen on his face.
Eric, he said formally, his tone unusually heavy. Your contract is up now. You're receiving final delivery.
What is the final delivery? He entered the house without permission, and I noticed a leather satchel slung over his shoulder. It was old, older than anything he wore, and looked much heavier than its actual size. It tugged at his shoulder, its weight unusual, as if the bag contained something heavier than ordinary matter. Something most delivery men have not seen, Marcus said, placing the bag on my kitchen table with a dull thud, like distant thunder, like a bone settling back to the ground.
Most people spend 3 years doing the same routine. Apartment buildings, cemeteries, and if they're unlucky, maybe some particularly awful subway stations. They make a choice and move on, either back to normal life or getting promoted to management. But you,
he turned to face me,
you've been chosen to do something far rarer. Famine needs you. Why does it need me? War, famine, plague, death, the anchor of this world, the ancient forces that maintain the boundary between existence and non-existence.
He gestured to the bag.
They need renewal, about every 60 years, with a possible 10-year margin of error. They must self-destruct and then be reborn. The Ouroboros cycle, someone has to send them to a place of renewal.
These words seemed to echo in the cramped apartment, emitting a tooth-aching, inducing, blurring sight frequency. The air thinned, as if something had inhaled but not exhaled. The light flickered, then flickered again.
And what do I send? The famine itself. The words spread like ripples on still water. I felt a churning in my stomach, a sense of emptiness welling up inside me, as if the word itself created an emptiness that had never existed before.
Levi whimpered softly, and Biscuit snugged close to him.
Why me?
I managed to ask. Marcus pulled out a chair and sat down, gesturing for me to sit as well. Levi remained lying on the bed, silent but focused, his tail tightly wrapped around Biscuit as if protecting it.
Because of your bloodline, Marcus said. The Dorman family has always been messengers, Eric. Your great-grandfather delivered plague in 1929. In the beginning of the Great Depression, your great-grandmother delivered war in 1871 during Reconstruction, and your father...
He paused.
Well, your father was supposed to deliver famine relief in 1985, but he ran away before the final delivery was confirmed. But he strongly resisted, so we had to find someone else.
I sat down heavily, my legs suddenly going weak.
Waiting for what? This time, the cycle is short, and we believe that it's waiting for you.
Marcus leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table.
Eric, these 4 timelines don't follow a human rhythm. 60, 70, 90 years, these are just suggestions, not hard and fast rules. They're flexible in some ways, and irrelevant in others. I don't know why, but I think famine is waiting for Roy Dorman to have a son, waiting for his son to join the company, waiting for him to prove himself worthy of this responsibility.
I thought of my father in his small apartment, the walls plastered with...
He knew it would happen?
I said softly.
He sensed it.
Marcus smiled, but the smile was filled with sadness and pity.
But Eric, I think you can just let this delivery go. Someone in your blood will eventually lead famine to revival. The only question is that person you or your descendant?
The apartment was quiet. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the dripping of the bathroom faucet I've been trying to fix, and Levi's rapid, shallow breathing.
What should I do?
Marcus stood up, walked to the window, and looked at the city lights outside.
To the land of revival. It lies deep in the desert. Beyond the roads, beyond the maps, beyond those named places, the journey will take about 2 weeks. I will accompany you as your guide. You will carry famine.
He tapped his satchel lightly.
In the land of revival, you will release it. It will self-destruct, and in the process, it will destroy you.
Will it kill me?
It will completely devour you. According to human calculations, you will exist in the cycle of famine for about 3 minutes. What happens with those 3 minutes will determine everything. Some messengers will change, some will break, some will never appear at all.
What if I survive? Marcus turned to me, and for the first time since I had known him, he seemed so hesitant. His usual confidence was unwavering certainty. For 700 years, now flickered like a candle flame in the wind.
If you survive, you'll understand why I persisted for 743 years. You'll understand the choices I made, whether they were wise, cowardly, or whatever. And you, having fully understood their significance, will make your own choices.
Levi lifted his head from the bed, his voice soft and tense.
Does he have to go alone?
No, Marcus said, his expression softening.
The escort can bring companions. They wish. The journey is dangerous, but no more dangerous than many of the previous delivery missions. In some ways, even safer. The desert's hostility is undistinguished. It never conceals its true nature.
I'm coming, Levi said, standing immediately, his tail swishing sharply, his tone resolute.
I'm going with you.
Levi.
I'm coming.
His voice was firm, carrying an adult confidence, yet his youthful face couldn't fully bear that confidence.
You took me in. You taught me how to blend in like a human, and how to survive like an outsider. You are my family. Wherever you go, I'll go.
Biscuit stood up and barked, his voice sharp and clear. Its meaning was obvious, evident in its hunched shoulders and perked ears. Marcus nodded slowly.
It's settled then. Set off at sunrise. Take water, salt, and bread. Nothing else. Is that the desert provides everything it has, and what it doesn't provide, you don't need.
How do we get there?
The deep desert, that nameless place. Like any place we go that doesn't belong to this world.
Marcus walked toward the door.
We'll ride horses.
He pulled a business card from his pocket, placed it on the table next to his bag.
Meet me at this address. Sunrise, don't be late. Famine won't wait patiently, even if it has waited decades.
He left, and the apartment seemed much larger because of his departure, as if he occupied a space much larger than his actual size. The air seemed thinner, easier to breathe. I looked at the business card. It was an address on the outskirts of the city, on an industrial wasteland where the highway met an abandoned railway, a place I'd never been and had never needed to be.
Dad?
Levi climbed off the bed and stood beside me, his tail still sticking out, his eyes filled with worry and childlike innocence.
Are you scared?
I thought about it carefully. 3 years ago, my answer would have been definitely yes, absolutely. Terrified out of my wits, but 3 years of delivering goods had changed my understanding of fear. I understood that the universe was stronger than I had imagined, but also more logical. It had its own rules, even those not familiar to me from childhood. With caution, with careful observation, with following instructions, one could navigate it.
No,
I said slowly.
I don't think I'm scared. Should I be? I don't know, but I'm scared for you.
I placed my hand on his shoulder, feeling the subtle changes in his muscles. His joints were slightly different from humans.
It's alright. You can be afraid for both of us. I'll try my best to come back alive.
He leaned against me, his tail wrapped around my legs, a gesture of trust and affection that always moved me deeply.
You promise you'll come back? Promise I'll do everything in my power.
That was the most sincere answer I could give. In this job, any promise was a lie, and I had learned not to lie to those who trusted me. We spent the rest of the time packing. The water in the bottle might never run out. The bread kept fresh longer than normal bread. Salt in leather bags. These seemingly simple things had to cope with a complex journey. The address pointed to a stable that shouldn't exist. A building made of old wood and even older stone, standing alone amidst broken concrete and rusty industrial equipment. The dawn painted everything gold and red, the colors of end and beginning, a symbol of death and rebirth. The building looked incredibly old, much older than the surrounding abandoned factories and warehouses. The wood, etched back by time, was almost black. The stones, smoothed by wind and rain, were grazed smooth. There were no signs, no indications of what this place was or the meaning of its existence. It simply stood there, silently, as if it had always existed, and would always exist. Marcus waited outside. 4 horses tethered to a post, indescribed with symbols I couldn't decipher. Symbols that seemed to change when I looked at them. 3 of them were the patient, robust horses I'd seen before when transporting goods. Those mares familiar with the impossible, who moved without hesitation between different worlds. They were all ordinary in appearance, brown and gray with calm eyes and steady posture. The 4th horse was entirely different. It was pure black, without a single shade, not dark brown, not dark gray, just black. As it moved, the darkness moved with it, as if the eyes itself carried a lack of light and small patch of yellow. Its eyes were wise and ancient, far beyond the age of any animal's eyes. When it looked at me, I felt the renaissance that transcended sight. It saw more than just my body. It saw something deeper, something more essential.
This is your horse,
Marcus said, pointing to the black horse.
Its name, Hietas, carried our messengers on their final deliveries. Now, it will carry you.
I approached slowly, cautiously, extending my hand. Hietas lowered its head, its nostrils flaring, sniffing my breath. Its breath was warm and strong, carrying the scent of cinnamon and ashes, spices and burning, and something that shouldn't be the breath of a horse. I stroked its neck. Its fur was hot, pressed against my hand. The handcuffs almost made me uncomfortable, but not painful. The feeling was just right, almost unbearable.
Hello, Hietas.
He neighed softly, the sound echoing in my chest like a drumbeat, like the bass of some enormous instrument. I felt my ribs, spine, even the back of my teeth vibrate. Levi had already claimed a mare, a gray horse, seemingly unconcerned about his unpredictable nature. The mare stood calmly as Levi checked the saddle. His movements were still, somewhat unnatural, but the horse didn't seem to mind. She had carried things even stranger than shapeshifters. Biscuit sat obediently beside the 4th horse, a brown mare, with gentle eyes. It waited for Marcus to lift it onto its specially made saddlebag. Biscuit settled comfortably, its head peeking out, ready to depart. Marcus handed me a heavy leather satchel, a gesture carrying profound significance.
This is famine. Don't open it. Don't look inside. Don't try to communicate with what's inside. Just take it. When we reach the land of restoration, you'll naturally know what to do. That feeling will come naturally.
The satchel was much heavier than it felt in the apartment, a heaviness that wasn't entirely physical. It had weight, yes, but also an undescribable density, like holding a collapsed star, something crammed too much into a small space. The backpack vibrated slightly in my hands, rhythmic, like breathing or a heartbeat. When I slung it over my shoulder, I felt something deep inside respond, an emptiness, as if my stomach had suddenly realized it was empty, and would always be empty, never to be filled, no matter how much I ate.
Hunger,
Marcus said, observing my expression closely.
is the presence of famine. It will grow stronger as we do. These past few weeks, no matter how much you eat, it will feel like months without food. That's normal. This hunger isn't a craving for food, but a craving for existence. It's a craving for emptiness itself, a craving to be filled, but never being filled.
That's really comforting, I said, adjusting my shoulder strap. Marcus skillfully mounted his horse, his movements effortless, as if he'd been doing this for centuries.
We'll head north, then west, and finally south into the depths of the desert. By conventional measurements, it's about 500 miles, but once we leave the world as disciples on a map, distance takes on a completely different meaning. Numbers no longer matter. Stay close to us. Don't stray from the route. Once we set off, don't look back at the cities. Looking back becomes an anchor point. Where we're going, anchor points are dangerous.
You're carefully mounted, he hit us, feeling the warmth of his body through the saddle and the power hidden in his muscles. He shifted down slightly, adjusting to my weight. I had a feeling he was sizing me up, judging me whether I was worthy of his carrying.
Ready?
Marcus asked, his gaze sweeping over each of us in turn.
Not yet,
I answered honestly.
but let's go anyway.
The sun had just risen when we set off. 4 riders, a dog, hungry, heading towards an unnamed place. The city slowly disappeared behind us. I didn't look back. My gaze remained fixed ahead on Hiatus's black ears on the road ahead. For the first few hours, we rode along familiar roads. The suburban houses were all identical, the lawns neatly trimmed. Nail salons, pizzerias, and dollar stores lined the streets. At gas stations, early morning commuters filled up their tanks and bought coffee from paper cups. This was typical of American urban sprawl, the infrastructure of a daily life. But as the sun rose higher, everything began to change. The distance between buildings began to lengthen, gaps appearing between them. Then, these gaps widened. The details of the houses became blurred, their features bland, becoming monotonous, more like symbols of houses than real homes. The commercial streets along the way also looked less authentic, like movie sets shot from the wrong angle. By midday, we rode through an area that was no longer entirely real. The ground beneath our hooves was hard earth, the color of old bones, dry and cracked. The sky was blue, but this blue seemed faded, as if it had been exposed to the sun for too long, the color cracking, the darkness beginning to recede. There were no landmarks, no features, no signs of human presence, not even a trace of human existence. No power lines, no fences, no roads, only an endless expanse of flat land, empty and desolate. We rode in silence, the only sound was the rhythmic clatter of hooves on the hard earth, the creaking of leather saddles, and the occasional clanging of harnesses. Even the wind was still, almost a whisper, without a scent, without stirring a speck of dust. The hunger grew stronger. At first it was just a slight discomfort, easily overlooked, but by the evening of the first day, this feeling, however, grew stronger. A gnawing emptiness, unrelated to my stomach. I ate dinner, the bread and jerky Marcus had prepared, but the food did nothing to alleviate my hunger. It was like pouring water into a bottomless pit. The food did reach somewhere, sustaining my bodily functions, but the emptiness remained. That night, we camped in an open area, with no shelter, nor did we need any. The air was neither hot nor cold, just peaceful, simply existing. We didn't light a fire because there was nothing to burn. We simply spread out our sleeping bags and fell asleep peacefully under the star-studded night sky. The stars a different color, forming constellations I couldn't recognize.
Dad?
Levi's voice came from the darkness beside me, seeking comfort. He had transformed back into his canine form, curled up beside the biscuit. The 2 dogs huddled together for warmth, even though warmth wasn't needed at night.
How long will we go hungry?
Marcus says 2 weeks.
2 weeks is a long time.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
me either. We were silent for a moment. Then Levi said,
But we'll get through this together, right?
Yeah. He quieted down, and soon I heard his breathing deepening as he drifted off to sleep. But I remained awake, staring at the starry sky I shouldn't have seen, my hunger growing stronger. The next day was even harder. The scenery below me became more abstract. The once bone-white earth was gradually replaced by something that was no longer earth. Its texture was like compact powder, fine and smooth, almost like ash. The sky's color faded even more, gradually changing from a faded blue to a near gray, finally disappearing into nothingness. Sometimes we could see shapes in the distance. They might be buildings, creatures, geological formations, or none of these. They swayed in the heat that shouldn't exist because the temperature remained neutral, that peculiar, neither hot nor cold temperature unique to this place. No matter how long we rode, those shapes remained forever out of reach. They were always on the horizon, unobtainable, yet always present. Hunger was ever present, filling my chest, stomach, and throat. I ate lunch, more bread, some bland cheese. The food tasted like dust in my mouth. From that he drinks from a seemingly inexhaustible jug. Yet the water does nothing to quench his thirst, merely flows through his body, sustaining his life, while his essence remains empty. Levi now changes form more frequently. He cannot remain human for long. He can ride a horse in human form for an hour, then crawl on all fours beside it, whimpering softly. Then he will roll over again, forcing himself back into human form, struggling to maintain it. But hunger also affects him, making him uncontrollable, even forgetting what he was originally supposed to look like. Only the biscuit seemed unchanged, still obedient in its saddlebag, still there, still silently keeping us company. But even it was quieter than usual, conserving its energy, belligerently observing the surrounding scenery. Marcus rode at the head of the group, steady and resolute. 700 years of experience had shielded him from the harshest aspects of the desert. But even he was quieter than usual. His signature Cheshire cat smile had become a slight upturn at the corner of his mouth. The next morning, we camped again in the desolate desert. I asked him,
Can things get any worse?
"Much worse," he said simply.
This is just the edge. We haven't even reached the heart of the desert yet. You'll know when we get there. How worse?
The sand. On the third day, the sand arrived. At first, the appearance of sand was a gradual process. The initially ash-like powder gradually became coarser, with a stronger granular texture, until finally it became real sand. At first, the sand was scattered sparsely on the bone-white earth, like sprinkled sugar granules. Then, the sand piled up into small mounds, forcing the horses to detour. Finally, the sand formed dunes, undulating stretches before us. Accompanying the sand was intense heat. This heat arrived so swiftly, as if we had crossed an invisible boundary entering another world. The previously pleasant temperature vanished. Instead, a fierce, fiery assault assaulted the area. The sky turned from gray to white, a ghastly white that stung to look at. The sun, which I rarely noticed in the ordinary world, now blazed like a scorching flame, a molten brass pan pouring down heat as if it were liquid. In less than an hour, I was drenched in sweat. My clothes clung to my body, stained with salt, and were very uncomfortable. Hayata's back fur seemed to absorb the heat and reflected it back, but he showed no discomfort. He walked steadily forward, his hooves sinking slightly into the sand with each step. Hunger became unbearable. It was no longer just emptiness. It was a visceral pain, a churning torment in my stomach, as if something was trying to tear it out. I drank water insistently, but it offered no relief. At midday, I tried to eat bread, but I couldn't swallow it. My throat felt blocked, refusing any food, even though my body craved nourishment. Levi had now completely transformed into an animal, running on all fours beside the horse, his form appearing and disappearing elusively and unpredictable. Sometimes like a dog, sometimes a fox, sometimes a wolf, sometimes something else entirely, something unnameable. He had given up trying to maintain his human form. Hunger had stripped away all his pretense. That night, we camped in the shade of the sand dune, but for some reason, it offered no shade whatsoever. Even after sunset, the heat persisted, seemingly emanating from the sand itself, as if the desert had absorbed the daytime heat and then slowly released it into the night. Marcus efficiently distributed our meager dinner as usual, but I noticed he barely ate. I realized he didn't need to eat. Whatever he would become 700 years from now, he had long since transcended ordinary hunger.
How much further?
I asked, my voice hoarse from thirst despite having drunk water all day.
I'm not sure. That wasn't really an answer.
he said. That night I dreamt of hunger, not a craving for food, but a craving for meaning, for purpose, for sanity. In the dream, I opened my mouth and found a door, from which emerged an endless procession, each one emaciated, desperate, and helpless, reaching for what I couldn't give. I tried to feed them, but my hands were empty. I tried to talk to them, but no sound came out. I can only watch helplessly as they walked past one another, hunger and despair, seemingly endless. When I woke up, I found Levi curled beside me, his tail wrapped around my wrist, his breathing rapid and shallow. Even in his sleep, he clung to me, seeking the comfort of closeness.
Did you have a nightmare?
I asked softly. He opened his eyes, which glowed faintly in the darkness, a side effect of his non-human nature.
A dream of hunger.
He whispered.
In the dream, I kept eating and eating and eating, but I still felt empty. Is this famine? Is this what it feels like?
I think so. I think this is famine.
It's terrible.
Yes.
How do people endure this hunger?
It was a good question. A compassionate one.
I don't know. Maybe humans are persistent. You are human. I am. Most of the time. I think not now. After all of this, perhaps you won't be anymore. He's become somewhat confused.
Perhaps he's right. By the fourth day, the scene before me had become completely abstract, disconnected from any reality I could perceive. The dunes were no longer just dunes. They had transformed into sculptural forms, mathematical curves, hinting at some kind of intelligence. They had formed after their undulations, were almost natural in their regularity, almost random in their perfection. Spiral lines, fractal iterations. Each dune was a variation on a theme, yet I could never fully comprehend it. Heat transcended physical temperature, transforming into something, a quality of air, an inherent absolute of existence itself. It wasn't just that the air was hot. Heat had become the fundamental essence of this place, the basis from which all things arose. We saw something. In the distance, some buildings appear, shimmering in the heat waves, swaying in the sand. Some buildings were too tall, too thin, too angular. Some towers spiraled upwards, reaching to the sky, disappearing in the dazzling light. Some walls stretched for miles, perfectly straight, defining the boundaries between nothingness and nothingness. Some doorways stood alone in the dunes, like structures without framework, leading into empty spaces. Sometimes these structures were even living organisms. On the fifth day, we passed a skull half buried in a dune. It was enormous, a full 20 feet tall, with eye sockets large enough for me to stand inside. The bone was paper white, clean and smooth, without a trace of flesh or cartilage. Whatever it had once been, it wasn't human. I couldn't call it anything. Its jaw structure was off, with too many teeth, and the shape of its cranial cavity was unlike any brain structure I knew.
What is that?
Levi asked softly. He had struggled to regain his human form that morning, though it had taken considerable effort. He pointed to the skull, his hands trembling slightly.
Something very ancient,
Marcus said. Something from before. Before what? Before the world decided what form humans wanted to take. Before the rules solidified, before physics and biology took shape. He pointed at the skull as we rode past it. This is what I mean by the deep, layered desert. Time, place, and all possibilities are compressed here. Many things perish here. Ancient things, the original things, things that existed in an era when reality was still debatable. You can imagine your computer's recycling bin. As we went on, more and more bones came into view. Ribs like cathedral arches, large enough to pass underneath. Vertebrae the size of cars, scattered across the sand like abandoned sculptures. a jawbone stretched for a quarter of a mile, teeth worn smooth by gravel, wind, and time, each tooth as tall as a person. We walked silently through an ossuary, overwhelmed by its scale, its age, and the incredible sheer size of the creatures that had once lived and perished there. Hunger was now unbearably intense, screaming incessantly in my nerves. I couldn't remember what it felt like to not be hungry. Food had become an abstract concept, something that happened to other people elsewhere. The bread we ate was tasteless, like cardboard, like dust. Water in my mouth felt like dust, meaningless, disappointing. By the 6th day, Levi had completely abandoned his human form. He ran alongside the horse like a hybrid of half dog, half fox, half wolf, and half something else. His form fluid and blurred, as if he couldn't remember what he was supposed to be, or found a fixed form too tiring. His tail swayed between fox-like fluffiness and wolf-like thickness. His ears were sometimes pointed, sometimes rounded, sometimes bent backwards. His legs would lengthen and shorten depending on the terrain. He no longer spoke, but communicated with whimpers, barks, and body language, but I could still understand him. We developed a vocabulary of gestures and sounds that transcended language. Biscuit stayed in his saddlebag, conversing his energy, patiently observing the surrounding scenery. He was the only one among us who seemed completely unchanged, though I noticed he had stopped eating altogether. He would drink water offered to him, but refused food. It was as if he understood that food was meaningless here, and hunger could not be satisfied in the conventional way. On the 6th night, Marcus spoke first, his voice breaking the oppressive silence, because we, at least I, were all somewhat afraid of nothingness. "You once asked me if I was happy," he said. We were sitting around another camp, without shelter, without comfort, just a place to stop and rest for a few hours. "Do you remember?" I nodded. "I think the last time I felt happy was many years ago. His name is Jacob." My mouth went dry, but I sat down to rest and listen to his story. My thoughts were jumbled, but I could still listen. "He was my servant," Marcus continued, his voice soft, almost drowned out by the desert silence. "Everyone called him that. The law called him that. Society defined him that way. But to me, he was so much more than that. He was my childhood playmate, and..." He grabbed a handful of sand, letting it slip through his fingers. "I never dreamed of marrying and having children. I never imagined having a wife, children, living the life my family expected. But I did dream of spending my life with Jacob. Growing older, I wanted to buy an estate, and just the two of us, and endless hunting. My health would be poor then, and hunting would be my happiest time." The sand slipped through his fingers, and he watched it fall, a deep sadness filling his face. "When they told me I was going to meet a woman I'd never met, and that my duty was to have children with her and continue the family bloodline, I couldn't bear it. Not because of the woman. As far as I know, she's a nice person. It was because they said Jacob couldn't come with me, and I couldn't continue my beloved medical career." "What happened after that?" I asked, though deep down I had a premonition. "My illness got worse, coupled with my unwillingness, led them to call off the engagement." His tone was calm, but I could hear the weight in it. In my final moments, in that year when I teetered between life and death, I told myself I couldn't die like that. I became obsessed with mysticism. I tried everything, summoning all the gods, because
I'm the youngest son of a noble family. I have the money to do it. My family just thinks I'm dying.
He looked at me, his eyes aged, incredibly aged.
Ultimately, I chose this path. 743 years, traveling to remote places, watching the world change, yet I remain steadfast. Do you regret it?
His smile was sincere and painful.
No, not at all. We spent another 10 years together. I told my parents I'd found a very busy job in London, and then you got the plague. So I thought then, if the plague and famine were alike, I'd already tried everything. Even to this point of ignoring Jacob, I can only seek out the plague. Because maybe I could have a chance.
Halfway through the story, Levi, in his animal form, quietly approached. He rested his head on Marcus's lap, offering silent comfort in an animalistic way. Marcus placed his hand on Levi's head, his fingers gently twirling his fur.
I made another deal. But this time it wasn't so lucky. He became some kind of being between life and death. And he doesn't remember me anymore. I had to trade a part of my feelings for some peace of mind.
That must have been hard, I said. Afterwards, the three of us sat quietly in the vast desert with Biscuit, the ancient skeleton casting long shadows on the sand. That night, I dreamt of a young Marcus, healthy and full of energy. Standing in a stone house draped with tapestries, Jacob stood beside him, smiling, his face radiant. They stood close, yet didn't touch, but the space between them held all the unspoken emotions they couldn't express. The second week was worse. The heat seemed to come alive, enveloping us like a second skin. It now had weight, pressing down on my shoulders, making each breath incredibly difficult. The air was so hot that inhaling hurt. Each gasp felt like burning my lungs. The texture of sand had changed. No longer sand, but more like powder, fine as flour, light as ash. With each step the horses took, sand billowed into clouds, casting a pale film over everything. My skin was covered in sand, and my clothes stiffened. Sand seeped into my mouth, nose, and eyes, rough and inescapable. We now saw more structure, less like buildings, more like the memories of buildings. Geometric shadows were cast on the sand, outlining the contours of walls and porches, but they had no substance. We rode across the dunes, unimpeded. I felt their emptiness, the place where people had once lived, loved, suffered, and died, now utterly deserted. On the 9th day, we discovered the skull of our first truly gigantic creature. We'd seen bones for days, but this one was different. The skull was the size of a house, perhaps even larger, half buried in a dune hundreds of feet high. It was remarkably well preserved, snow white, with eye sockets large enough to fit a car. The teeth and remaining fragments were as long as me, worn smooth by centuries of erosion.
What is that?
I asked hoarsely, my voice barely audible.
It's something that existed before the concept of size existed,
Marcus said.
Before physics mandated uniformity, things could be enlarged or shrunk as needed, and it didn't matter.
During the day, more and more bones appeared, ribs like the framework of a cathedral, arced overhead as we rode beneath them. Vertebrae, the size of buses, lay scattered across the sand like giants throwing dice. A spine stretching for miles, partially buried in the sand, formed a ridge we had to detour around, for traversing it would take hours. The scale was unbelievable. My brain kept trying to comprehend what I was seeing, trying to imagine these bones belonging to a real creature, but this attempt undermined my ability to grasp size and space. On the 10th day, Levi stopped moving. We had camped the night before, and dawn broke. Or rather, barely dawn in the white sky. He was just curled up, lying there, his body rapidly shifting shape. Dog, fox, wolf, human child, and back to dog. The transformations happened so quickly I couldn't even see them clearly.
Levi?
I crawled to his side, my body barely able to move.
Hey, buddy. We have to keep going.
He whimpered, his voice high-pitched and desperate, but his eyes remained closed.
He's reached his limit,
Marcus said softly.
Hunger is eroding his ability to maintain his form. Shapeshifters need more energy than humans to maintain their form. He's been running out of energy for days.
What do we do?
Pick him up.
Marcus had already gone to Levi's horse, adjusting the saddlebag to make room.
Put him with Biscuit. We'll comfort each other.
I carefully picked up Levi. He was so light, as if hunger had consumed him entirely, and placed him in the saddlebag with Biscuit. The dog immediately curled up beside him, offering warmth and companionship. Levi's eyes opened briefly, his gaze hazy and unfocused.
Dad?
I'm here. Rest. We'll get there.
Really?
Really. He closed his eyes, his breathing gradually calming. He seemed to enter a state of hibernation, his body shutting down non-essential functions to conserve its dwindling energy. We continued on. On the 11th day, the scenery changed. We descended into a valley, but valley wasn't entirely accurate. It was more like a depression, a vast bowl-shaped area in the desert, perhaps once a lake bed, millions of years ago, perhaps never having held water. The sand here was a darker color, almost black, its surface covered with endless spirals and swirling patterns.
Look closely.
Marcus's voice was tense.
Tell me what you see.
I looked. At first, all I saw was patterned black sand. Then, my eyes adjusted to the light, and I saw them. Scales. Those patterns weren't formed by wind erosions. They were scales. Huge scales, each as large as a house, overlapping in perfect geometry. The entire valley floor was covered in them, a vast, boundless reptilian armor stretching to every horizon. We were walking on something enormous, something buried, but not dead, something breathing with a rhythm measured in decades.
Don't think about it,
Marcus advised, his own voice hoarse.
Don't try to comprehend the scale. You'll just break down. Just ride. Just stare at that cave.
A cave? He pointed ahead. In the center of the valley, about 10 miles away, there was a jutting rock, the only vertical feature in the entire depression. At the base of the rock, barely visible even from this distance, was a dark opening.
There,
he said.
That's where we're going. That's where rebirth is.
On the 12th day, we descended into the valley, and the temperature plummeted. Not coolness. The coolness was long gone, but another kind of heat wave. This heat wave came from below, radiating upwards through the scales, as if the creature beneath our feet had a fever, as if its massive body was battling some eternal infection. The scales trembled slightly as we passed. Not noticeably, not quickly, but I could feel it. A subtle movement beneath the horse's hooves, a flexion and descent, as if the creature below were adapting to our weight. This swaying stirred ripples in the valley floor, the pattern of disturbance spreading outwards from below our path. My horse did not waver. He moved steadily forward, his back hooves carrying an unusual certainty, firmly planted on the scales, but I could feel his tension, the growing vigilance of his muscles. He knew what ground we were on. He knew danger. We didn't camp that night. Marcus insisted we continue, saying it was dangerous to stop on the scales, but he didn't explain why. So we rode in the dark. Though under the white sky, day and night were almost indistinguishable. the scales shifting beneath our feet, waves of heat rising, hunger devouring everything. I was sometimes lucid, sometimes delirious, my body moving mechanically, my hands gripping the reins tightly by muscle memory alone. Sometimes I could feel the surrounding desert. Sometimes I felt as if I were elsewhere, a darker, colder, equally empty space. On the morning of the 13th day, I looked down and found I could see through my hands. Not quite, not like ghosts, but they were translucent, slightly translucent, as if I were fading away, as if hunger had devoured not only my energy, but also my essence, my body.
Marcus,
I said.
my hands.
He glanced back, his expression turning serious.
You're nearing the breaking point. It's actually a good thing. It means you're ready. It means the transition will be easier when the famine consumes you.
Easier? How so?
You've partially dissolved. You're somewhere in between. The feeling of being devoured won't be like destruction, but more like completion.
I didn't know if his words were comforting or terrifying. On the 14th day, we reached the cave. A rock jutted out like a tumor from the scales, a massive rock out of place with the surrounding geological formations. It was dark, almost black, with shimmering textures interspersed within, like obsidian or glass. The entrance to the cave was small, barely large enough for me to walk upright, perfectly circular. So perfect, it seemed unnatural. Marcus dismounted first, his movements still steady despite 2 weeks in the desert. He helped me down. I nearly collapsed. My legs felt like they'd forgotten how to support my weight. Hunger consumed me completely, an emptiness that swallowed all other senses. He took Levi and Biscuit from the saddlebag. Levi was still unconscious, his form somewhere between human and animal, his breathing shallow and steady. Biscuit stirred, licked Levi's face, then looked up at me with eyes full of patience and understanding.
Can you walk?
Marcus asked. I nodded, though I wasn't sure if I really could.
Let's begin then.
We entered the cave. The cave was smaller than I'd imagined, almost a room. The walls were smooth stone, worn smooth by hands, time, or something else, giving them a dull luster. In the center of the floor, a scale lay embedded in the rock like a fossil. It was about the size of my palm, shimmering with iridescence, capturing non-existent light and reflecting it into unnameable colors. Green, yet not quite green, blue, yet almost purple, red, yet shifting to gold, like the satchel. It pulsated with the same rhythm, a heartbeat, a breath, the most fundamental pulse of life. Marcus carefully placed Levi and Biscuit against the wall. They huddled together, the warmth of Biscuit supporting Levi's swaying body. Then he turned to me.
This is it,
He said softly.
the place of rebirth. Here, famine devours itself, then is reborn. Here, the cycle repeats.
He looked at me, his expression grave.
Are you ready?
I pondered this question. Was I ready to be swallowed by one of the 4 anchors of reality? Ready to linger for 3 minutes in the existential hunger of my stomach? Ready to face whatever lay ahead?
No,
I said honestly.
but I'll still do it. This is all anyone can ask for.
He stepped back, giving me space.
Open the bag, put it on the scale, then step back and let things take their course.
My hands trembled, or perhaps not. Or perhaps I couldn't tell anymore. I opened the bag with fingers that felt like someone else's. Famine appeared. It didn't appear in the form of any creature. It didn't appear as anything with a definite form. It was more like a lack shaped into intention, a void that had learned to move, a darkness beyond darkness which devoured light, not by absorbing it, but by destroying it, making the light believe it had never existed. It flowed from the bag like liquid shadow, like oil solidified in nothingness. With its appearance, the cave filled with that emptiness, that hollow pain, that endless, insatiable longing. The hunger I had felt for the past 2 weeks paled in comparison. This was the source of hunger, its origin, its pure and undiluted essence. That thing gradually took shape. I realized it was a snake, or something like a snake, long and sinuous. It moved with a terrifying grace. Its scales, if they were truly scales, were a deeper black than black itself. An Ouroboros. Its head was buried in its tail, devouring its own matter in an eternal cycle of destruction and rebirth, devouring and being devoured, end and beginning, start and end. I placed the bag on the scale embedded in the floor. Famine hovered on the scale, hovering around itself, forming a perfect circle from head to tail, from beginning to end, and from end to beginning. It pulsed the same rhythm I had felt for the past 2 weeks, and now I understood. It wasn't a heartbeat. It was the pulse of the universe itself, the fundamental rhythm of existence, the beat to which all things dance, whether aware or not. Then it stopped devouring itself and turned to me. I had expected fear. I had expected to run, to fight back, to resist with every last ounce of strength that I had. But what I felt was recognition. Famine knew me. It had always known me. It had been waiting for me, waiting for this moment. This was all destined to happen. This moment was etched into my blood, to my DNA, into the very root of my existence. Structure. I was born to stand in this cave, to offer myself to hunger in this moment. It opened its mouth, and that mouth was also its tail, and the tail was itself. Before such essential existence, all boundaries are meaningless. I glanced back. 3 more minutes. Marcus called. His voice tingled with tension, perhaps fear, perhaps awe, perhaps both. We'll be here when you return. If I could return, I thought. But I didn't say it out loud. Instead, I took a step forward, and hunger devoured me. Hunger vanished. This was the first thing I noticed. It was so sudden, so complete, that it took my brain several seconds to process the emptiness, that gnawing emptiness, that nothingness that had occupied my conscience for 14 days simply vanished. Not because it was filled, but because I became hunger itself, and hunger feels no lack. I found myself in a vast, tranquil, utterly peaceful place. This space was indestructible. It wasn't dark, that there was no light. It wasn't empty, yet there was no scene in the traditional sense. It wasn't silent, yet there was no sound I understood. It was a gap between heartbeats, the pause between breaths, the perfect stillness before action begins. From here, I can see everything. Everyone who has ever longed for something. Every empty stomach, every lonely heart, every searching soul. They're all here, connected, all part of this vast network of desire. A network like invisible threads that bind the universe together. The children in the refugee camp, bloated from malnutrition, dream of rice. The widow in the suburban house longs to hear her husband's voice, longs to talk to him again. The young people in the city apartment yearn for meaning, yearn for purpose, yearn to find something that makes the long days worthwhile. The woman in the hospital bed longs for more time, even just a little more time with her family. The artist gazes at the blank canvas, thirsting for inspiration, yearning to find that scene that can make everything meaningful. The prisoner, held in solitary confinement, craved humans' connection so intensely that it became physical torment. They were all here. Everything. All the hunger, desire, and desperate need that had ever existed or ever would. This network stretched backwards, across time, forward, towards infinite possibilities, connecting all lives, sharing the experience of emptiness. I finally understood the nature of famine. It was not destruction. It was not cruelty. It was not punishment. It was space for growth. It was an emptiness that allowed filling. It was a void that gave form to abundance. I saw my father, young and desperate, standing at the warehouse door. He longed to escape his inner demons. He longed to find a way out. I understood. His hunger shaped me, created the space in which I existed. His emptiness gave me form. I saw everyone I had ever delivered to, all those difficult, struggling customers, and I understood what they all longed for. Connection, recognition, acknowledging their existence, acknowledging their importance, acknowledging the meaning of their existence in the universe. The things in the 13th floor hospital yearned to reclaim the essence of their lost reality. The castle-like creature in the wall yearned to regain its former memories. The subway passengers yearn to reach a destination they can never reach. The old man telling stories yearns to find someone willing to listen to his warnings. The gardener, situated between two places, yearns to comfort those lingering on the border. We are all thirsty. We all forever yearn. All try to fill the void that can never be filled. For it is this emptiness that gives us life, gives us meaning, and elevates us beyond the static objects of a static universe. Time flows here in a particular way. I can feel the second hand ticking away. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. But each sound contains infinity. In the first second, I experienced 1,000 lives, felt every kind of thirst, every desperate longing, every hand reaching for the unattainable. In the second second, I understood what Marcus had given me. Choice. To stay is to delegate oneself forever, becoming part of the machine that feeds the thirsty, maintaining boundaries, letting each world operate on its predetermined path. Or to leave is to return to a mundane life, memories bound, words imprisoned, carrying knowledge yet unable to share, unable to apply, and unable to use it to shape anything beyond my own understanding. Both choices are empty in their own way. They both create their own hunger. To stay means eternal dedication, watching my loved ones age and pass away while I remain unchanged, experience the slow fading of the connection brought by immortality, to live forever with a longing, watching the lives of others unfold in cycles, while I remained attached, serving them, providing them with convenience, yet never truly participating. To leave means silence, yearning to know the truth, yet unable to speak of it, unable to share it, unable to let it enlighten the world, to live with a full understanding in a lonely emptiness, carrying knowledge like a boulder in my heart, never to be lightened, for I can never put it down. In the third second, I made my choice. It wasn't because I wanted to do it. It wasn't because I was ready. It wasn't because one choice was better, more correct, or more aligned with my true desires. It was because one desire touched me more clearly than another, and emptiness brought me more peace. I chose the desire for immortality over the desire for silence. I chose eternal devotion over isolated cognition. I chose to remain, to be like Marcus, guarding the boundary between existence and non-existence, however long eternity may be. Because Levi needs stability, because Biscuit is immortal anyway, and deserves a master who doesn't age, because the universe needs food to feed its hungry beings, because I realized I was good at this. I followed the rules. I returned alive. I now understand that these are not merely survival skills. They are dedication. They are service. They are the willingness to enter nothingness and return again and again, bringing nourishment to those beings who cannot be self-sufficient. Perhaps that is enough. Perhaps that is the mission. Perhaps that is how to fill the emptiness, not by erasing it, but by accepting it, living in it, and letting it function. Famine liberated me. I knelt in the cave, panting, my body rediscovering how to be an entity, how to separate, how to be an independent individual. The transformation back to a single existent was so dramatic, like rebirth, as if every atom of my being had to remember how to coalesce into a single point of consciousness. The scales on the ground were gone. In their place stood new scales, brand new and gleaming with colors never seen before. They were ready for another 60 years of waiting for patience, waiting for the slow accumulation of time until the next rebirth. The Ouroboros devoured itself and was reborn, and I was the catalyst, the transmission mechanism, the messenger that brought hunger to its own rebirth. Marcus stood above me, extending his hand. His face was taut, with an emotion I couldn't describe.
Welcome back,
he said softly. Exactly 3 minutes and 14 seconds. Congratulations, Eric. You've completed the final delivery. I took his hand, stood up, my legs almost forgetting how to support my weight. The hunger was gone. Truly gone, no longer concealed or hidden. I felt a completely different kind of emptiness, clean and vast, like an empty bell, poised to receive whatever was to come. Levi shifted against the wall, slowly opening his eyes. When he saw me, standing, alive, unharmed, he relaxed completely. His tail, now fully exposed, no longer shimmering, began to wag.
You're back,
he whispered. His voice was hoarse, but still human.
I knew you would come back, but I was afraid you wouldn't. But you really are back.
Biscuit stood up, walked to my side, and pressed his warm, strong body against my leg. Patient, loyal, and genuine. I looked at Marcus. So, what now? Now, we formally present this proposal. He took a step back, his posture formal but friendly. His expression was complex. Belief, sadness, understanding, a mixture of emotions. Eric, your contract has been fulfilled. You've served for 3 years, completed one final delivery. Now, you have a choice. Either pay off your debts and leave with fond memories, or accept the promotion, become a manager, stay with us forever. What if I accept the promotion? You'll become like me. Time flows differently for us, and aging hardly slows down. You'll manage other couriers, mentor them through 3 years of service, and align them with tasks when they're selected for final deliveries. You'll witness the world change while you remain the same, and you can never leave, never retire, never rest in the usual way. This service will become your existence, your purpose, your eternal present. My choice is deep inside, I said. Just 3 seconds ago. I will stay. Marcus's eyebrows rose slightly. Are you sure? Do you understand what this means? Forever is a long time, Eric. I understand. Someone has to do this job. Marcus was silent for a long time, his old eyes fixed on my face. Then he smiled. Not the wide grin I was used to, but a gentler, more melancholic smile. Choosing eternity. The reasons are heavy. The reasons for all great choices are heavy. That's why they deserve our deepest consideration. Well then, congratulations, Eric Appleby. He pulled a business card from his pocket. I didn't know where it came from, given we'd been in the desert for 2 weeks with extremely limited supplies, and he handed it to me. You're a manager now. Welcome to eternity. The handwriting on the card was exactly the same as his, elegant, script on thick paper. Eric Appleby, manager, full-time employee. Next week, you'll start training new delivery drivers, he continued. Train them, mentor them, try to keep them alive. Though many may not make it through the first month, remember, you can no longer talk about this publicity online. No more online confessions. Work matter stays at work. Boundaries required you to act prudently. We rode across the desert, through the melting world, through suburbs and commercial streets, but finally back to the city. The return journey seemed shorter, perhaps for me. Time had been something I could freely control. The hunger gradually subsided until I could eat bread again, truly savor its taste, drink water and feel refreshed. The pocket watch on the coffee table displayed a new photograph. I stood in an office, exactly like Marcus's, dressed in clothes that seemed too formal, too important. Behind me, reflected in the window, I could see that tall figure that had appeared in countless photographs. But this time, I recognized him. That was me. The me I was going to become. The manager, the eternal servant, the guardian of the borders. I'm about to start working.